evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you back, maybe for the last time. Happy New Year. I call the Monday, January 12th, 2026 regular meeting of the Farmington Board of Education order at 7:01. If you could all please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Our first item of business this evening is the election of board officers to serve a 2-year term. This includes the Board of Education Chair and the Board Vice Chair / Secretary. We will begin with the election of our Board of Education Chairperson. The floor is now open for nominations in the office of Chairperson of the Farmington Board of Education.
Superintendent Committee, first of all, welcome to Farmington. It's a pleasure having you here. I know your first week is on as well as you hope. And I'm excited to it is my honor to nominate Andreas as the next year of the Farmington Board of Education. Andrea was re-elected to her 3rd term in November and has been a tireless and dedicated public servant of the board since 2018. In addition to being the highest ranking member, she has built quite a distinguished resume during her time. Andrea has served as vice chair and secretary for the last 4 years, under 2 different board chairs. She has served on the negotiations committee for all 8 years with the last 4 as chair, leading the board through several crucial negotiations, most notably our administrator and union contracts and the hiring of special transportation, the new transportation provider in the department for the first time to She has served on the curriculum committee for the last 6 years, before the last 4 as chair. Andrea has also served as the board liaison to the Noah Wallace Fund for 8 years, the cafeteria advisory committee for 4 years, and the Green Equines, Health and Wellness, and Superintendent's Interscholastic Athletics Advisory committees for 2 years. Most recently, Andrea served as chair of the Superintendent's search, an 8-month process which led us to the members still on this board who also served on that committee can attest to just how thoughtful, thorough, and deliberate Andrea was throughout that process, a testament to her leadership. On a more personal level, Andrea and I have spent countless hours together over the last 2 years that I have been on this board. We have developed a great working relationship, and I have tremendous amount of respect for her as a person and leader. I have witnessed firsthand just how important Andrea is to this board, to our school district. She truly embodies all of the traits and characteristics of which board members should have. She is smart, steady, collaborative, respectful, and caring. She is a skilled relationship builder, and her institutional knowledge will be an important asset to our superintendent. Most importantly, Andrea is a fierce advocate for our school district and always leads our students as her star. I couldn't imagine a better person to shepherd this board into this new era, and I encourage my fellow members to support her nomination to become our next chair.
Thank you. Andrea has been nominated. Is there a second?
Can I say something too? I didn't know what James was going to say, so mine echoes a little bit of it, but I've worked with Andrea for the last 2 years on the Board of Ed and found her to be thorough, honest, transparent, and fair. As James mentioned, she recently led our superintendent search, and I think that's where I really got to know Andrea and her leadership skills. We could not have asked for a better leader. Through the entire search process, she thoughtfully listened, was always well organized, and valued the opinions of all, regardless of political affiliation. Working with Andrea, it immediately becomes obvious her intentions are pure and always focused on the children and families of Farmington. While we may not always be aligned or agree, I know Andrea will take the time to listen and truly values collaboration. Andrea will be an excellent chair of the Board of Ed, and I have the support for nomination.
Okay. Thank you. Andrea has been nominated for a second.
Second.
Any further nominations? Do I have a nomination? Do I have a motion to close nominations? In favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Given the nomination, I will read the motion for the election of Board of Education Chairperson. I already have a first and a second to appoint Andreas Kaminski as Board of Education Chairperson. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? By a unanimous vote by the Board of Education, I hereby appoint Andreas Kaminski, Chairperson of the Farmington Board of Education. Congratulations.
Thank you both, James and Councilor, for the kind words. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I'm really honored by your confidence. So thank you. I'm truly honored by your confidence and grateful for the trust. Serving on the Farmington Board of Education for the past 8 years has shown me just how meaningful the responsibilities we share to our students, families, staff, communities, and I accept the role to share with you, Ms. Johnson. I want to take a moment to thank my family for their constant support. Board service requires meaningful and significant time to this work, and I'm grateful for the patience. To my 2 children, thank you for sharing me with the work of the board, for reminding me every day about it. Everything we do as a board is rooted in our mission to support all students in achieving personal and academic excellence, engage learning, and responsible citizenship. As chair, my commitment is to foster strong governance, thoughtful, respectful dialogue, and decision-making that reflects our shared values and students. I look forward to working collaboratively with you and to continuing a strong partnership with our superintendent, one that's built on trust, open communication, and a shared dedication to public schools. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve in this role, and I'm confident that together we'll continue to move our district forward in service of every student in our team. Thank you.
She's not close.
Okay, for our second item, so our second item of business is the election of Vice Chair of the Board of Education. So do I have a nomination, Vice Chair?
pleasure to nominate James Ratcliffe for Vice Chair this evening. Just say a few words to support my nomination. James began his first term on the Board of Ed 2 years ago. Seems long. Quickly hit the ground running, particularly by joint negotiations committee, which has a task ahead of it, cross contract, right off the bat. And a challenging year, a couple of years. But he handled it with just such grace, hard work, determination, and was really set on having to work for all the families and students in town. And it was in that work and the regular work of the Board of Education our superintendent search, that James has really demonstrated his dedication, focus on collaborative nature of the board, and just ensuring positivity and good emerging. It's been a significant support to Andrea, as said already, very deserving of this role and all the responsibilities that come with it to serve us well. I'm proud to be proud to put James on the board. It's a pleasure that I have to be vice chair.
I'd like to start with it is my privilege to support James in the position of Vice Chair of the Board of Education. James has demonstrated a deep commitment to this board's work and to our shared responsibility of serving all students in our district. His thoughtful preparation, willingness to ask important questions, and ability to collaborate respectively have strengthened our discussions and decisions. As Vice Chair, the role requires leadership, a partnership, supporting the chair, helping guide our meetings, and ensuring that our work remains focused on the best interests of students. He brings the judgment, professionalism, and steady presence that this role demands. I'm confident that James will serve as a board with integrity and care and is pleased to support this nomination for Vice Chair. Have any other nominations? I move to close nominations for Vice Chair.
Second.
So, to appoint James Rapp to the position of Vice Chair of the Board of Education. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Up to the table, James. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Item 5, approval of minutes. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the December 8th, 2025 BOE regular meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Anne's gonna abstain. All right, so that's 8. Oh, wow. Motion carries. Item 6, consideration of superintendent's report.
B, superintendent's welcome and entry plan.
Okay, well, I hate to follow that act. I mean, they had interaction and coloring, but I'll do my best. Well, here we are on day 6. I've had the question over and over again, how are you feeling? And that has been a range of emotions from excitement to head spinning to exhaustion after a day of visiting schools and hearing all about the incredible work and learning more about our incredible students, staff, and schools here in Farmington. I wrote my first communication to families this past Friday, that I was anxiously awaiting my first day since late October. And nothing could have prepared me for the warm welcome that I received this past week. The talent and dedication on display in our schools and our offices and really everywhere across Farmington is something that's made me feel just really fortunate to be a part of this organization. My family has a little tradition at dinner where we share a rose, a thorn, and a bud as we eat dinner. And these days we eat dinner together less often with sports and all of their teenage activities. But I said in my communication to staff on Friday that my rose every day was the same, which was my decision to come to Farmington and be a part of this district. My thorn was that there just simply hasn't been enough time in the day to get to meet everyone. And even though I've been spending, and I'll talk a little bit about this, an extended period of time in each school, enough time to really get to know everyone, but I know that will come. And my bud has been just thinking about the amazing things that we'll do together as a school district. I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve as superintendent in a district so devoted to educating the whole child and cultivating tomorrow's leaders, young people prepared not only for success, but to make a positive difference in their communities. The purpose of a superintendent entry plan is to outline the intentional steps that a superintendent will take during their first months. For me, I wanted my plan not just to be about what I would do in the opening months, but also to really serve as a roadmap for the work that I'll continue to do in the months and years ahead. And that includes listening and learning and leading alongside you as a Board of Education, our staff and students who are here this evening, families, and also the broader members of the community. Through this process, I aim to build on Farmington's proud traditions while deepening our shared commitment to preparing every student to be an empowered global citizen. Assuming the role of superintendent is complex, as I began to think about this transition, however, I wanted a process that did not begin and end with an entry plan. The inquiry process that you see on the slide above is designed to fit right into the work already underway. What you see here highlights a routine for learning more about our rituals, reviewing practices, and understanding each individual's role and responsibility, assessing our strengths and where opportunities exist, and finally, focusing our efforts on the work making the biggest impact and giving us the biggest return on our investment, all geared towards our students' success. I did not want to plan to include goals because I believe goals need to be developed in collaboration with our teachers and our school leaders. But I wanted to land on some themes that would really be the guide for this work. So you see here my priority list. And as I defined it, a goal is a destination. It's a specific target that you want to hit by a certain time. You can cross it off a list. A theme is a lens. It's a broad category that groups similar ideas or activities together. You don't finish a theme, it's how you do the work. The themes I selected here are about the students, staff, families, and the community of Farmington. These themes represent how I plan to work in partnership with each group. My priority list includes strong connections, authentic interactions, keeping an eye on the prize, which is all about student success, and leading us forward through new phases of achievement and success. Our students and staff come to us with unique talents, backgrounds, and skills. My work will focus on ensuring we have the right systems, policies, and practices in place to protect time for teaching and learning at all levels. The next 4 slides really highlight those themes. Up first, theme 1 is all about opening doors and opening dialogue with all stakeholders. It's one thing to know who the superintendent is, it's another thing to know the superintendent. This is why these initial meetings are so critical. I want every member of our community to feel prioritized and their stories to feel important. You see here action steps that include meeting with individuals from all levels, both inside and outside the district. And I won't read every single action step, but you can see it's a combination of meeting with staff, school leaders, district leaders, community leaders, to really establish a presence here in Farmington. Theme 2 has a big idea, which I spoke about a little bit already, which is it's not what you do, but how you do it. A big part of this theme is how I will spend time in schools during my first month. I have a school visit scheduled for every day this month, and I opted for longer school visits. Sometimes you'll see in an entry plan where a superintendent will try to be in every school in the first couple of days. And my feeling was that while that would certainly cross it off the list, it wouldn't allow for the opportunity to have authentic connections with students and staff. Today, for example, I spent about 2 hours at West District School with Matt and Dan. Sam and Dan accompanied me. And we walked around not only looking through the lens of facilities, but when our time was up from the buildings and grounds perspective, I spent some time walking around and visiting classrooms. I really appreciate how much time everyone's taking to catch me up to speed, introduce themselves, and make me feel right at home here in Farmington. So far, this has been very successful, and I plan to continue this throughout the month of January. The goal is to form relationships and authentic time. Transition theme number 3. So as you know, I'm getting started here. As I said, this is day 6, right in the midst of it. And coming in mid-year creates some challenges for a new superintendent. We only have about 100 days of school remaining. The staff here is not used to this, but I kind of have a countdown, but not from a like, yay, it's summer countdown, but more from a like, we've already 18 days already gone. That's 10% of the school year. We've got 90% of the school year left. But the idea here is we need to keep our foot on the gas. There's a lot of important work underway, and I want to make sure that it's not about the superintendent, it's about the students. And so my job is to try to keep our staff and ourselves focused on that work. Each action found here was selected to keep us focused and to send the message that that's the most important thing we do here as Farmington Public School employees. And the last theme, theme 4, is all about doubling down on the excellence and the achievement and the innovation that Farmington is so well known for. There's so many reasons to celebrate and be proud to be a part of the Farmington Public Schools. The tradition of excellence can be found in every classroom, hallway, playing field, gym. An organization that is constantly and thoughtfully improving, though, also looks for the next phase of innovation. I spoke during my interview and also to some members of the staff already saying you probably have in your pocket the iPhone 16, maybe even the 17 or 15, but you probably don't have the iPhone 1. I'm hoping nobody picks the original iPhone out of their pocket at this moment. And the reason is the iPhone is a great invention, but we keep phasing in new and better versions of it. We're not throwing out the idea of the iPhone, we just keep improving upon it. And so that really, to me, captures the essence of this theme, which is we have amazing things happening here in Farmington, and how do we keep phasing in that next level of innovation to help us reach the goals of our VOGC. So in conclusion, I want to thank you again for your support and your trust in selecting me as superintendent. I said in my family letter on Friday also for trusting me with the care of your children. I see that as an enormous responsibility, and I'm completely humbled by it. Know that this plan, though, is just in its infancy and will continue to evolve. In fact, we have a leadership DLC meeting later this week on Thursday, and I plan to sit with our school leaders, review this plan, and get their input, just as I did with the board initially during the interview process, to hear additional ideas of how I can make my transition to Farmington successful. There's a great deal, again, to be proud of. Amazing students, as we saw this evening, who are brave enough to come up and speak in front of the Board of Education. Dedicated and passionate staff, dedicated and passionate board members, and caring families, all of whom are at the heart of this incredible district. These partnerships will serve as the foundation for Farmington's continued success as Connecticut's premier school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Any comments or questions for the superintendent from the board? Okay, well, thank you. We're definitely excited to be working with you and, to build on a partnership that's, already begun over the past couple weeks. But I'm excited for the future of Farmington with you as the lead.
I'm excited to be here.
So next item, item C, preliminary 2026-2027 technology budget presentation.
So the next two items in the superintendent's report this evening are for preliminary presentations of the technology budget and the major projects budget. In addition to tonight's presentation, there are also links to the videos put together by our Director of Finance and Operation, Mr. Ross. And I understand this is somewhat of a tradition now to provide these videos for us. These links can also be accessed by members of the community, so we hope you've had a chance to preview them. We do these presentations in parts because they're large drivers in our budget, and they can be a lot to digest, and they hopefully prepare you to ask good questions and think deeply about the work during our full day budget meeting that will occur later this month. Mr. Ross is here to get us started with the presentation of the preliminary 2026-2027 technology budget.
If you are getting the audio worked out, there's a chance I'm going to turn this on. Chance to make a little bit of feedback. Mr. Markham's here. Take a little feedback. So, if you guys want to mute yours for now. Try that. There we go. It's because we're sitting in front of the speakers tonight. So, well, thank you. And as the superintendent kind of teed everything up, I was going to explain a little bit about it as well. So thank you. I come to the board this time of year to give the preliminary before we get to the actual budget workshop to help answer questions in advance, to help cut down on some of the time during the budget workshop as well. The presentation is centered around the district level technology. And so we have I've worked out a way of managing technology requests throughout the district based on where the requests are coming from. What you see before you in this presentation, as well as what we'll talk about tonight, are things that are funded in district level technology budget accounts. Each school also does have a technology account, and those are for items, mostly for software, that are specific to the school itself, or in some cases split between, so if it's a product that's used at the high school and the middle school, that shows up at the school line level. When we get to the workshop, the budget is presented in object format. You'll see that difference. The numbers that I present you tonight are that district level. Those objects as being presented during the budget workshop, you'll see are probably going to be a little bit higher because at that point, it also includes school level requests. The two biggest drivers of this year's technology requests are our annual software increases. We continue to see annual increases in the 5 to 8% range, most on our critical operating software, so our budget system, PowerSchool. Those would be the two biggest at this point. I continue to work with vendors to try to mitigate those increases as best we can, but a lot of it's market driven at this point. The second biggest driver is the cost of Chromebooks. We entered into, we had planned to start prior to COVID, moving from a classroom-based technology program to a true one-to-one. COVID accelerated that. We've stuck with it with the exception of grades K1 and 2. We have pulled back to the classroom cart model. It's helped mitigate some repair costs, but really what we're seeing now is that the cost of the device itself has gone up about 23%, driven by the market, the chip market. We don't currently have any worries about sourcing devices. But there too, I've shifted our purchasing schedule, leveraging ESSER money a few years back, so that we're buying our Chromebooks in the spring with current fiscal year dollars to ensure that we have devices available and ready for students for the start of the following school year. And the only other the only other larger change that I would want to call out is in Objects 650 and 617, which are computer licenses and protection and network monitoring and backup. I did a little bit of realignment this year in those two accounts, aligning the software that we were purchasing, funding in those accounts more to the description. So there was a product that we were using for some network security. It moved from one account to the other. And so you'll see the dollar change between last year and this year is equivalent. One account went up, one account went down, and it was a realignment of those products. Any questions?
How much do Chromebooks cost now?
Roughly $275.
Okay.
So $275 for the device. We pay about $19 for the case, and then there's a management license that goes along with the Chromebook that Google sells. That's what allows us to do all the cool things, pushing apps out, managing the devices, tracking devices. That went up in the last couple of years. It's currently $32 per device.
Okay. And you were placing grades 3, 5, and 9?
Well, so right now we're 3, 9, and then the third batch is split between kindergarten and
Okay.
basically replacing kindergarten, first grade, and second grade devices that are damaged or that.
Okay.
So we still have it's still a 3-point roll kind of refresh.
Yeah.
It's just I've shifted it. What we found is the devices we're getting today last a little bit longer, they're a little more powerful. So a student who receives it in 3rd grade, it has the capabilities that it needs until the student reaches 8th grade. And we typically refresh the 8th grade devices prior to standardized testing. So it's usually that March, April time frame, so that they've got a brand new device for testing, and they've got the device that can ready for high school.
I think I know the answer to this, but I do get this question from high school parents because a lot of kids use their own device, but we still have a Chromebook. Has there been any thought about how to?
So supporting personal devices in a high school environment comes with a lot of overhead in terms of the extra support aspect. There's also the fact that any standardized testing, in a lot of cases, the assessments that the teachers are administering in the classroom utilize the technology that you push into the Chromebook, whether it's a secure browser or whether it's access to certain type of technology. So we've stuck, especially in the high school, we've stuck with district-issued devices, and we continue to try to push that with students that they use their district-issued device for their schoolwork. When we get into the personal devices into the environment, there's a whole host of variables that we sometimes can't control to maintain that access for the student.
And then kids have to use their Chromebooks for certain tests too, right? Questions? Yeah.
When you
Erica?
do like the analysis of it, typically what you then need is additional IT support and liability and such for devices that kind of almost negate the savings from the fewer, school purchase ones you have, right? And so it's a sliding scale piece on that.
Erica?
So my question is around the insurance that I know we get through school bucks to purchase and so forth, and can't remember what the annual cost is for that.
$30 per year.
$30 per year, and then so are you seeing that families are purchasing that, and then do you find that it is that you're getting sort of a return on that, meaning that if a Chromebook gets damaged or things like that, we can utilize the insurance? It doesn't cover, I guess?
So the insurance covers accidental damage, not intentional. And the $30 is a manageable amount. The insurance is not required. And we've already, many other districts have already found this out too, but that there's no real enforcement on our end that we can do. So the staff, the IT staff, we work with the families. If they've purchased the insurance, obviously accidental damage is covered. If they haven't purchased the insurance, we'll let them know, hey, you can buy it now, it's covered. Most of what we see at this point is intentional damage, not accidental damage. And in those cases too, we try to work with families in terms of replacement costs. I wouldn't say there's a lot of people that participate in the insurance, but on an annual basis, it covers at least one of our parts orders to the tune of $1,200. Oh. So we're defraying some costs of parts to repair devices and then reissue devices.
It's still not a lot. I mean, 1,200 is not.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Many districts have abandoned the insurance at this point, but we've kept it in place for those that want to participate if they know that. I have a child who frequently accidentally damaged his Chromebook.
Any other questions? Beth?
So Matt, you mentioned in your presentation that we're kind of coming on the heels of a couple of years of significant reductions through the town budget process and what we ended up with. So would you say it's fair to say that we're still playing catch up in some areas?
Maybe some decent headways last year.
Yeah.
Where basically what I'm seeing right now is a result of the market increases. We've been able to build back some of those cuts in the past years.
Okay. Thank you.
Some of it also means how and what we divest ourselves in terms of applications as well.
Yeah.
Things that we've identified aren't necessary.
Yeah. Thank you.
Matt, I just have a quick question about on the licensing increases. I assume that these contracts are annual.
Most of them are, yeah. We do have some contracts that are multi-year. In most cases, we'll enter into a multi-year if it's of an advantage to us.
Right.
Either lock in a particular yearly rate or lock in a lower annual increase. There's some limitations as to where we can do those multi-year increases. And each year we also declare our multi-year agreements. Each year we have to declare those to the auditors as well. So what we've entered into that is a multi-year, because a lot of times there is the next path. Like when you enter into that multi-year, you're locked into that.
We also try to be really thoughtful about those multi-year, where there was a new AI product last year that we were looking into, and of course they wanted to, we can be great discount with the multi-year, but kind of knowing it was kind of that new area, we didn't really want to kind of commit to that. So you kind of, hey, let's do a year, pilot it, let's see where we want to go, and then from there we can kind of close to doing it for year, not exactly what you thought it would be. Right. Kind of stuff with the 2 years. If you try to focus that more on, those kind of operating ones that we know are kind of, I think fits, right? That's part of our operation needs and part of our day-to-day kind of that we know.
Thanks.
Matt?
Yeah, thank you. I just have a question. In the data systems object 351 section, you mentioned there was actually a cost mitigation around website services, and you mentioned sort of working with a local partner to improve upon the design of the website. I was curious if there's any more commentary you can add to that.
So we launched a new website, a year ago? I think it was a year ago. But we're working with the Walker Group. we were previously with Final Site. We were spending about $52,000 a year annually just for the annual maintenance contract on the website. We've reduced our annual maintenance significantly working with the Walker Group, as well as launching the new design. I have monthly meetings with them. They assist us in some of the implementation of changes and enhancements to the site. We have a data analytics platform that runs now that shows us heat maps in terms of how people are navigating the site, so we can adjust menus and things to make it a little bit easier. So incrementally, we continue to make adjustments and improvements, and they're a key partner in that process.
Any other questions?
I just got one more, and that's it for me.
Go ahead.
In the, I guess the Chrome, you mentioned in the Chromebook section, right, working with CT colleague to pool orders, right? Is it fair to say, and I'm new, so we just buy in Farmington, we don't pool with other towns, but we're looking to do that, and curious how that might look from your perspective.
There's always a conversation. In most cases, we are purchasing from a consortium agreement. So it's not a direct purchase with another school district, but we're all buying from something that has been negotiated based on the assumption that most school districts are going to be purchasing off of that contract vehicle. But the conversation happens every year on the tech director's listserv as to who's buying what and where they're buying it from to help to make that case to the manufacturers. We have a couple of really good partners in this state, resellers that go to bat for the school districts every year. And they're not, the partners that we work with here in Farmington are not just about selling the product. They're good about working with us to find the right solutions, and a lot of times in the price points that we can afford, not the outrageous ones.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is preliminary 2026-2027 major projects presentation.
So thanks. So Sam, Matt, myself will kind of interchange through here for the various projects and such. So once again, just a reminder, major projects are those that we cover through our operating budget that we kind of put in, and later on we'll talk about the capital projects that we go in there. So usually a little bit smaller in scope, try to be able to get them done, completed like in a shorter period of time. So we'll just go through basic on facilities, go quickly, gonna go under the assumption that many of you saw the presentation that Matt put together with that. So we'll go through and then happy to take the questions afterwards. So we're looking to complete our room acoustic panels. This is a project that we have started with already and continuing that at a cost of $32,000. Over at Westwoods, once again, continuing some bathroom partitions, just kind of continually upgrades. That picture there in the middle, I believe, is the high school, but it's kind of a model similar of kind of where we're kind of looking to go. And then there's a breakout space there, down there, kind of looking to take the walls area and kind of do some improvements there, kind of making those a little bit more dynamic learning centers. So possibly some whiteboard space, some different things to kind of just be able to have students, engage and kind of do some of that deeper learning. East Farms, once again, you'll see that theme. We've done some cabinets. The third picture, if you're going from left to right there, you're going to see a completed kind of cabinet from a classroom that was done. And then there on the bottom right, you're going to see kind of one that we haven't gotten to yet. So you can kind of just see where that material's kind of chipping away and just, needs that kind of refurbishing, in there. And so, and then courtyard improvements, we started doing some last year. And we'll look to kind of continue that, and also some classroom ceiling work that we're looking to get into for East Farms. Over at Noah Wallace, we have 3 classroom carpets that we're looking to complete. Those were supposed to be completed from last year when we did a lot of that work, kind of setting them up. However, we did find some, I think some abatement that we needed to do that we took care of, right? And now, but we just didn't have the time. We wanted to make sure we had everything set up. So we'll look to do that completion for here. Sorry, doing my own laptop. Over at Union School, you'll see some exterior door replacements, some screen blinds continuation, and some classroom and stairwell painting. And over at West District, really focusing on a courtyard project where there's some trees in there that are kind of also impacting the pavers, kind of creating some there. And then, interestingly enough, somehow some poison ivy has worked its way into that courtyard that we can't seem to find like its origin in there. So just kind of doing some cleaning, refurbish, and getting in there, make that once again a safe learning space for everyone in that area. And so here's a summary of the major project requests that we have in there, and happy to take. Just note once again, Farmington High School as being a new school, we're happy to say shouldn't really need any major projects at this time. So basically being able to kind of divert that to some of the other schools, really kind of helping out for the total district. So happy to take any questions anybody might have.
Angela?
For some of the projects that are labeled as like continued, so they do look familiar to me from last year, is there anywhere that we house what like the total cost of the project is, something like the East Farms courtyard? To be honest, I thought that was like a project last year and then we were going to be finished with it. I didn't know it was like a continual thing. And I stand by my comment last year about the Westwoods bathrooms. I think the old ones look fine. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell the before and after pictures, but so like we're doing more partitions there. Is that it then in the Westwoods bathroom, or then next year, like is that 80% of the project's done? Is that 100% of that project's done? I think it would be good to see like for those continuation projects, like a percentage complete, or just to know, or like try to have in our minds if we're going to see this again next year or not.
No, I think that's a great question. I think there's a couple things there. One, sometimes you'll see a continuation just because, once again, the scope of the work. So some of them you want to ideally try to get through for the whole year, but you find something unexpected, whether maybe it be an abatement thing, or something, you're digging underneath some roots, and all of a sudden you find something that you weren't expecting, and so now it sidetracks you, or some various things. So that might kind of delay some things. But the other part of it, so that's one aspect of it. As far as kind of like, whether it's bathroom partitions or different things, there is inherently a challenge in the maintaining of all the facilities, where you're constantly doing, you constantly want to stay on a plan where you're constantly refreshing and doing some things, because if you kind of like, okay, this one's fine here, then eventually they do need to be done, and then you're looking at 8 years down the road. Now it's a $500,000 project because now you're trying to do 40 bathroom partitions across everywhere. So there are some times that you are refreshing and you are doing some renovations of things that might have a couple more years left, but then you're kind of you potentially start creating a bottleneck, and you can start creating an issue where now in a few years, and you never know when those years come if those end up being like even more difficult budgetary years, right? And then you cut those things, and I think Matt alluded to before. There was a couple of years where some technology cuts needed to occur, and so then you're playing catch up for a while, and then while you're playing catch up, you don't have that opportunity to kind of grow and expand. So there is so it is. I would agree. It's a challenge, right? To how do you keep things moving at kind of a steady rate where you're not creating a bottleneck? But that does mean that you look at something and you go, well, it's still got a couple years. You probably could squeeze out a couple years of it, but it creates this backlog.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, please.
That's okay if we're doing the Westwood bathrooms. It's my opinion on whether they're good or not. It's not like really important. I'm just more saying, like, so are we done with the bathrooms after this year, or is there going to be next year? We're going to see it because we need to do another 20% of the bathrooms. And then like in the East Farms, I know there was a large sum last year to take the tree out. So I'm assuming the tree's out. but now for the 16,000, what are we doing in the courtyard this year? Like those types of questions.
Two things I can answer there. So at Westwoods, where it becomes difficult to tell you a percentage done, is that many of the bathrooms are different sizes and configurations. So they're all at different price wherever we are. But we could say there were 3 sets of bathrooms that we are addressing with last year's allocation, and this is another 3 sets of bathrooms that we're basing this price on. After that, we would likely go to some of the smaller bathrooms, and I'm also working with head custodian and principal to be able to identify the highest priority of the bathrooms that we're looking to do, and make it an amount where we're able to disperse costs, so every school's seeing, except the high school, they're good. But so every school's seeing some improvements across the district. So it would be great to be able to say, yes, all the bathrooms we're doing this summer at Westwoods, but we're trying to find a manageable amount, identify the highest priority ones. And yes, we can put a number of bathrooms that we put on there, but it might not reflect proportionally the percentage done.
Like, I think, Angela, are you suggesting, like, if we know we're planning to do the bathrooms over a 3-year period, that we would say this is phase 1, then this is phase 2,
Sure.
And I think it's the flexibility to know that at times phase 1 might not get fully completed because of some of the things you mentioned, Dan, about like things we might uncover, but then at least you know that you are going to hear about this again for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and then once again, there's always an inherent challenge. I mean, last year actually worked out fairly well because Westwoods had the roof project. So because of that, we didn't have a lot of the summer school programming that usually goes there. So that's sometimes where you say, okay, let's descend upon Westwoods because it's an empty building. But then there are still some times there, though, the roofers still want you out of the building, and so you don't have that full 8 to 10 week window, and so it's coordinating with the various contractors about kind of getting in. But just to circle back a little bit, like the East Farms, though, just for an example, just to kind of clarify, there are 3 courtyards in East Farms. So we were able to accomplish one of them of clearing out. Now this is another one that we're looking to address and trying to go through that piece of it and there. And when we do try to look to see, if there is special equipment that, hey, can we get through, in this case, can you get through all 3 courtyards in one time while you're doing equipment for cost savings and things? Other times there's just not, a benefit, and it's just, we'd rather just kind of space out so we can be thoughtful about the operating budget and making sure too we're looking and addressing, all the various schools and prioritizing that list.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Erica?
So just to clarify, and I do want to touch on the bathrooms too, sorry, we're going to go back to that.
Sure.
But just to, bathrooms, just to clarify, if it doesn't say continue, that is new for this.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clear, okay, that's the question mark I had. And then 2 other things, one, I'll dive into the bathrooms now, so let's go to the Westwoods one. So the picture with the green partitions and so forth, is that an actual picture of one of the Westwood bathrooms? I'm just asking.
On the left?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then the one in the middle is the one that you are envisioning it might
We're
become.
looking, yeah, so our standard in district has become stainless steel partitions. We've done it at Irving Robbins, the high school, central office. So we're looking to transition at 24 years old, the age of the building, looking to transition to some new stainless steel partitions there.
Perfect. So you're actually answering you're leading me into the comment that I want to make about bathrooms. I have 3 boys that have gone through, well, my youngest one now is at Westwoods. And, but my older 2 have gone through the elementary school, the Westwoods, Urban A, and now they're in the high school. I can tell you that all 3, very different personalities, very different height, everything. I have heard about the Westwood bathrooms feeling that they need more privacy. And so I think, to some extent, whenever we make these kinds of renovations and so forth, or are considering, I'm sure you're taking into account, all of your staff are going through the buildings and so forth. I'm sure you're taking into account maybe feedback from the staff. I would hear from the kids as well, the students themselves as well, when it comes to these proposals. And maybe in part of your presentations, or maybe part of the bringing these forward is,
freeing the voices of some of the students, because I can tell you, and not just my 3 boys, but other kids that I have heard that privacy, especially as you're starting, I don't hear it as much in the elementary schools, but when you start to get into like that upper elementary and then middle school, privacy, you know, they're changing. So certain things just feel a little bit more the need for privacy. And so the one in the middle seems like it would be that ideal to give that feeling of privacy. So I get it, I understand. And so, you know, I just wanted to comment on that because I have heard, I think it's time, some, you know, just, and these buildings get used quite a bit by their old, majority of them are used quite a bit. So, and then the last thing I wanted to ask, FHS smell. I didn't see it on the list here, but I recall in one of our meetings something about a smell. And that wasn't sure, did that get resolved? Because I don't see anything here around a, you know, facility.
I think it was in one of the weekend updates I saw.
Yeah, oh, was it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, can you?
No, but happy to give an update. So we've done a few different mitigation pieces. Right now, the strategy has been taking every, for lack of better words, every hole, every vent, everything, and kind of pretty much covered them up.
Okay.
And doing that, and then so since we've done that, there was one a trap, I think, that kind of got dried up, and they smelled it for a little bit, but they rectified that piece of it. Since then, classes are back in that room. They haven't reported any smells, and so, but the reality is right now we've kind of covered up everything. So the goal is, much like, you know, the IR students and the deeper learning and the scientific process, we're going to start kind of identifying one variable at a time, and you know, we're enjoying the success right now, and so we don't want to do it, but probably I think we're scheduled sometime next week to like lift one of the vent holes, right, and then give that 2 weeks and see if we smell anything, and if we do, then we at least kind of know, you know, where to focus our energy on, and then, you know, and hopefully, you know, maybe it has been addressed through various kind of things, but so that's kind of that process that we're working with. So the classes, the good news is classes are back, you know, doing, you know, hands-on learning and the deeper learning that we want them to do. You know, could I say it's 100%? No, but, you know, we feel like we got at least I would say it's under control until we can maybe still, you know, I don't know if we can say, yes, this was the problem and now we have the solution, but we've been able to mitigate it a little better.
So you don't know the source still?
Not 100%. Still a lot of hypothesis, but, you know, once again, it's a learning environment, so we don't want to have to keep being out of the classroom so we could continue to experiment and stuff. So we have it under control, I would say, but we'll slowly kind of work to see what we can do.
Did you have something? Matt?
Yeah, thanks. I just have two. One is sort of a new board member question, so I appreciate everyone's patience with that. I was curious how you sort of develop these estimates, right? Classroom carpets, $50,000, the bathroom partitions, $35,000. How do you sort of create those numbers to kind of bring to us as part of the budget? And then two, just the Noah Wallace classroom carpets. I think it was 3 at $50,000. Is that just the carpets, or was there also embankment work as well?
I can start with Noah Wallace, if you'd like. So last year, we had 5 classrooms that we were planning to recarpet and paint. So we started that project, and what happened was, even though we had tested for any substrate underneath the carpet, when we removed the carpet in 2 of the classrooms, what we identified was there were multiple types of flooring in a building built very long ago. We found multiple types of flooring which had not been tested, and as is protocol, you stop, you test. What we found was that there was, in fact, asbestos-containing flooring and glues that were underneath the carpets that we were in process of. So we had to put a hold on that, and the allocation that we had to be used in order to abate the 2 classrooms where we had started pulling up the flooring. So that was a 1.5 week period where we had to stop and do that properly. Cut us short on time, cut us short on funding as far as finishing all 5. So what we did discover as well when we started testing on multiple other locations within the other classrooms based on the patterns we saw on the other side of the hallway is that those 3 classrooms we have here will need to be abated. So that estimate is based on We had one classroom that we had to have an abatement. We have 3 classrooms on the other side, so we've taken that cost and multiplied it by 3. And we know what the square foot cost is of carpet and installation. So that's where that figure came from. A lot of, when you see it continued, it's based on, we know what the East Farm ceiling cost us the last time we did the East Farm ceiling. So you multiply it by the number of classrooms that we're trying to do and probably an escalation factor of 5% or something like that from last year. And where we can, we'll bring in contractors, get an idea of the cost on it before we present it. But usually it's based on, when it's continued, it's based on past experience.
Any other questions? I just had a comment, and I was looking around and I was thinking about it. My first board meeting 8 years ago, I got, I think, seven books, and it was called the Fryer Report at that point. Now it's called the K-8 Facilities Report. So are major projects still following the recommendations from the K-8 Facilities Report?
So, yes, in addition to the security report that was created, and we looked for the recommendations there, in addition to ongoing meetings we have with each building's principal and administration. So we kind of try to cross-reference, if there's something that's in the the fire report, security reports, and the principal's identifying, that kind of makes it a high priority. It's like kind of all 3 areas. And so, you kind of look at, all those. But yeah, definitely we still use the fire report as kind of one of the things, and making sure, it was interesting. I think when we were preparing for the, board orientation, we were collecting from the fire reports. And so I was kind of looking back, I was like, oh, I feel good. We got that one done. We got that, and you kind of working through. So yeah, so we've kind of, I've kind of created this spreadsheet too, where I've kind of taken all the recommendations from the fire report, from the security report, from the principal's report, and kind of merge them all into one, and then kind of make it high priority, low priority, and like where that recommendation may come from. And then we just kind of keep just trying to, get through them. The reality though is like whack-a-mole. As soon as you get through 4 or 5 of them, by the next year, some new ones are coming up. And then sometimes you just get the unexpected ones that, you don't anticipate. I think at central office, the water heater, water heater tank, which was not part of the overall construction, kind of starting to show some cracks, leaks, kind of things. And so that's going to be something that we didn't anticipate for, but we'll work through it and go there. So
I was going to ask. I mean, so that report is, or that study was done probably like 9 years ago. How long is that valid, so to speak, or when would be the next time that you need to do that kind of review of facilities?
So we brought Fryer actually back to review that a couple of years ago, just to review how much of it have we crossed off at this point. And the answer is really a lot of the low-hanging fruit that was there, we've been picking away at very well for the last 8 years. As we bring in of the larger projects to you that we bring to you, such as the HVAC project that we're bringing forward, those are some of the larger. So a lot of what you're going to see from there is probably going to end up going towards capital and larger projects.
But to answer your question, we're probably a year or two away from going back to Fryer and kind of doing a new one for the next, probably for the next 10 years, to kind of help give us that roadmap for the next 10 years.
Is that Fryer report available online?
I believe it's on the website.
I think it is. I think I've seen
website
it.
Facilities.
Yeah.
I believe it's there.
I just bring that up in case new board members want to reference it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Suggest starting with the executive summaries for the light reading before you dig into
Oh yeah, I have all those binders on a bookshelf at home still, so it's easier to look at it online. All right. So any other questions? All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Farmington, Connecticut State Department of Education's Accountability Report and Profile and Performance Report. Veronica.
So there is a report in your board packet. Students provided with the 2024-25 year accountability report, it's called the Profile Performance Report. It's an annual report produced here. We actually just probably.
Is that better? That is better. This is an annual report produced by the Connecticut State Board of Education for every district and every public school in the state of Connecticut. So even though in your packet you have the board, the district one, there's also a school one produced for every school as well, which we provide on our website. It's also provided on the Connecticut State Department. They have a site called EdSite, so it's on EdSite as well. And so you can see here, I've provided a slide. This report gives a great summary of these kinds of data points. So student data, including enrollment, demographics, educator data. So that's our FTEs, what we call our full-time equivalents, how many teachers and paras we have, educator demographics, educator attendance, and newly this year, educator attrition is in here. It also has data about instruction and resources. You can see them there. I'm reading them to you because these are sort of these high-level indicators about our district. And also, I just want to point out that in many ways it lines up to our school development plans. Our school development plans we have in the buckets of climate and culture, which really has a lot to do with the student data and educator data, right? If you're looking for, we'll have action steps and then results and outcomes related to that. And so many of those you'll find here. Instruction and resources really lines up to teaching and learning, and performance and accountability really lines up to student achievement. So in many ways, this is really a great counterpart, public counterpart to our own internal reports like the school development plan. I'm not going to actually go over a lot of the data points here. I will tell you that many of the things that you would hope are happening. Things are on the upswing where they should be on the upswing, and things are on the downswing in places like chronic absenteeism and things like that. But really the point of presenting this to you is so that you know that you have, these are all really data points that are covered in so many other reports that we do for you throughout the year. So to repeat them here would be really redundant, but it is nice to highlight that this report exists. It might be something great during budget time to have at the ready if you have it printed out and you have a question about something. But I can imagine, like for questions you may have, like, how many of our students do graduate from high school? It's right there. It's in this report. Or how many of our students do actually continue on to college and then actually persist in college? The data point is right there. You might be doing the budget. How many of our students utilize special services, for example? And you can't remember the number off the top of your head, you can go into this report and find it really quickly. So it's like a really great, like one-stop shopping kind of a report. Like I said, produced by the state of Connecticut, based on the data, of course, we give it. We provide, they give us templates, we provide all the data that goes into these reports. I would say another interesting way to use these reports for anybody in the public or anybody on the board would be to be thinking about, because these reports are consistent and they're archived from year to year on the state website, they're a great way from comparing like last year to this year, district to district, or district to state averages, which is sometimes helpful too. When you have questions about certain things about like how's Farmington doing? Those are 3 different ways that you can compare how Farmington is doing. So it could be sort of a treasure trove of information or a starting point for a question you may have, at this table or that you're interested in. And I would say that one of the ways we use it too, and Jess sort of hinted to this in his introduction about how we are a district striving for excellence at all times. And so one of the ways we also use it is to look for bright spots. And so this helps us identify places that are, often we're doing well, but we also look for places that are doing really well as in these areas and to find out more about what they're doing. Like, why is your arts access so high? What did you do? What's going on in your school district? And what can we learn from that? And other examples like that. So it's a really great source of information for us. It's public. It adds to sort of transparency and understanding what schools are all about and what they're doing. And then this slide, I just wanted to point out, there's also something that the state provides to us. It's called an accountability index. So they actually score every school and every district And so our accountability score is made up of all of these indicators, and they really try to do something. You can see there that they didn't focus on just one area. They're trying to come up with a way to quantitatively score every district to make sure that we're leading towards like a more well-rounded student. So that's why you can see on their physical fitness scores, arts access, as I mentioned before, whether students are taking, have post-secondary plans or take college level courses, those kinds of things, in addition to the kinds of things that you would see on our Smarter Balance report or other state report testing that we report out to you. Some of the lines there are in yellow. So green is like we're really strong, and yellow were areas where last year I sort of highlighted as areas that we need to continue to grow. And I'm happy to report in every single one of those yellow categories, you will see an increase over our last year's results in every single one of those. There's still areas I would say that we need to improve in, as usual. I'll say that every time I present this, but every single one of those saw improvement from last year. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, Angela?
So I thought this was interesting. I love data. It was great to see some of the, I just saw improvement when I was looking through it. One table I thought that was interesting, and I want to make sure I'm reading it correctly, is on page 48, the new educator attrition data. So, I'm passionate that I think our educators are probably our greatest resource and asset here, and good educators promote good environments, lead to great students. Am I reading it correctly that we have almost a double attrition rate as the state average does? And have we looked into that at all or delved into it as to what we can do to maybe turn that around to, keep our great educators here?
So one of the things I wanted to point out is you're right, that is new this year, as I said before. And there's also another point, there's an Appendix A that also goes along with it.
Is that in here?
It's also, it should be in there, yep, Appendix A, and that actually presents to you the reasons why people are leaving. And so we do ask our teachers when they do leave for any purpose, including retirement or they're just leaving, what's the purpose of their leaving? And so this also gets reported to the state and they report out on this. And so one of the things I think is interesting here is that it says one of the categories is to teach / admin in other Connecticut districts, and that makes up a bulk of the teachers who are leaving, so 14. But what I thought was interesting about this is that they sort of lump in teach / admin in another Connecticut district altogether. Many of our teachers do get great leadership experience here as well, or in their 092s while they're here. And many of them, and I have that as anecdotal, data, but do go on to take leadership positions in other districts as well. So that's, that would account for at least some of that discrepancy between where we are and where the average is for the state.
So you would say that bucket skews towards people actually getting leadership roles in other districts?
I know it does.
As opposed to just...
Yeah, I know it does, yeah.
Okay.
It's not all of it, but that's a big part of that story.
Yep. I missed that chart, thank you. I'll look at this a little bit more too.
Erica?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I have a couple. So if we can start off with the chronic absenteeism, and just to make sure, and I know that the asterisk tends to be defined as it's suppressed to ensure the number was low and to ensure the confidentiality, right, because it would be identifiable. But am I reading this correctly? Female, I always bring it back to the, anyway, yeah, chronic absenteeism. So female chronic account has an asterisk, the rate asterisk. Help me make sure I'm reading that correctly. So that means that there was a significantly low rate of chronic absenteeism amongst females in our school population in Farmington compared to our male.
What page are you on?
I'm sorry, 47, yeah.
I don't know why that data is suppressed. That happens every once in a while where it sort of looks like an error, and it cannot be true that it's low, because if you look at the overall district average is 8.4, which would indicate actually females are more absent than males, who have an average of 8.3. So girls must have an average chronic absenteeism rate of 8.5, if you're looking at that. So I don't know exactly why. Sometimes this happened on other reports before, that and I can't explain it. I don't really know
Yeah, I
why.
would-
Sometimes that something like that is suppressed because.
I think it's, I think it has kind of like an intersectional piece. I think if we look at, like in this case, Black African American English learner, because that one is so low that was identified, you know, I saw that, let's say it's Big Westwood, all one school, 5th grade, if there's only 8 ELL African American female.
Yeah.
And they pop up now, I think figure out one of 8 kids
Kids.
got it,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes it's that intersectionality that good, it's expensive, like the numbers are fun. Potentially being able to identify that individual if they're meeting multiple categories. So someone hits there, read those categories.
The number would be suppressed.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
suppress the one that's probably got the highest number of.
Yeah, I know that was, I'm not sure.
So I'm curious, it's probably a question for us, maybe have to say.
Maybe
Yeah.
have to stay
How
well.
they determine it, but I think it, once again, it's that, intersectionality in multiple categories, potentially, could be different.
Yeah, so I think with that explanation though, just because, I do know, and many of us look at these profiles, and especially when you're moving into a town and so
Right,
forth.
right,
but,
right.
I mean, that could be further explained in the way that you explained it, maybe next to that on the left-hand side under the notes, details of maybe one, I don't know, a suggestion for the state. That's one. And then the other one is around the suspensions, suspension counts. I still, I will always say this year after year after year, and this is across the board, across our whole state, suspension of males, pretty significant. That to me is a significant concern. And then when you drill down into that, the students with disabilities, suspended, you can drill down further into all of that. Is that a target population, and sort of what are we doing in the sense of responding to that? And then, so I mentioned students with disabilities. Oh, the other one around the students with disabilities for outplacement and in-placement, and that's on slide, let me just make sure, sorry. I think that's 50. Placement with disabilities, or students with disabilities placed outside of the district. So, and I know that this tends to be during the budget time area where this is a significant cost for all districts across the board, ours as well. But just for a point of clarification, and I always make a comment like this too, not necessarily here, but in my professional setting, that, when you say private schools, it's kind of again, sort of that misunderstanding about these. I think, would you clarify for me what that term, that the way they're defining private schools under students with disabilities placed outside of the district? It's not your Miss Porters. It's not correct. I just want to correct. It's not your families have chosen to take their child and put them in a private education.
Right. I mean, these are all determined in an IEP process.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so those are the placements, but you are correct. It's based on what the
It's a
students.
private
their
therapeutic, holistic environment for individuals with disabilities. And I think that accounts to the cost overall. I think we all need to be mindful of that as well. But just making a note for that for when budget time comes, because that is such a critical part in our budget. And then, and then there was another one about emotional, when you looked into the reasons. And I know we talk, and the school does a great job around social emotional learning, and I know that Farmington has that new partnership with a behavioral health therapeutic, or behavioral health counseling, right? Can't remember what we call that, that we piloted.
No, in the high school.
Yeah, the high school that we just, I think last year was the first year we piloted. I would love to have them come back to, I think it was Dr. Loss was the name of the psychiatrist, or to come back and to hear from them, how successful that's working. Are they seeing utilization? It is such an important need across the the country for behavioral health services, and the fact that we have such a unique partnership is really, really something that makes Farmington stand out in the state. So it would be great to hear from them and how that partnership is going.
And Erica, you asked some great questions, and I know that schools use this data as well when we develop our plans for the coming year. So, and those are presented in the fall, I believe. Yep. And so when you hear that, there should be direct correlations to some of these data points. So when you talk about an example like suspension, like what is our plan as a district to address those specific points?
And that would be in culture and climate and
Yeah.
school development plans. And I do want to take the chance, though, to say that, when we were talking about, even chronic absenteeism, last year was 8.6, this year it's 8.4. So that's not a huge reduction, but it's a reduction. But compared to the state, it's 17.2. So that really is still a lingering number from COVID times being that high. And we've really been able to curtail that over time. And so again, we don't ever want it to be, 8.4. We want all of our students in school all the time, but, comparatively, we're doing really well there. And I would like to also point out on the suspension count last year, it was 133, and this one was 85. So again, when I said things are trending in the right direction, there's another example of it.
And that's great. I think that's another great example of where were we last year, and we don't have that one in front of us. We have what we have. But where were we? What's the comparison, I guess, from the year before? Yeah. So that's great. Okay, thank you.
And I'm just going to guess we have these posted on our
They are,
website.
I'm
I didn't
sorry.
actually go through those, but that is a place. So for new board members, if you'd like to go back, you should be able to access the 23-24 version, now you have the 24-25, and so you can go back in past years and you can look at some of that data over time.
Yeah, and just another, sort of online resource. I know you have two, there's a lot, so I wouldn't expect you to go back to the source and look at it, but EdSite, it's edsight.gov, ct.gov, has all of this data on it as well, with really nice visualizations where you can compare different things, so you can go on there and see even more information than they even are able to put on this report. There's a lot more even information on there, and they archive it for many, many years. I mean, it goes back over a decade of information related to these indicators.
Any more questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Veronica. Next item is, we're on 6F now, professional appointments, resignations, and retirements.
So included in your packet this evening are the appointments, resignations. There's no mention of professional development activities for this month, but for January to date, we have a professional appointment of Caitlin Duffy, who's been appointed as a language arts teacher at IAR Middle School, and a resignation of Janelle Lovig, did I say that correctly? A special education teacher at Farmington High School, effective January 13th, 2026.
Next item on the agenda, 6G, is deeper learning updates.
So each month we include these deeper learning updates in the packet for the board to review, but also for the community to see the incredible efforts taking place in all 7 of our schools to work towards a level of deeper learning for our students. Since we're at, I won't go through all of them, they are included for you to review, but since we're at IAR this evening, I just wanted to briefly highlight one example that I enjoyed reading about, which was students comparing marketing strategies that P.T. Barnum used back in the day and comparing those to techniques used by social media influencers today. So if we think about deeper learning, I think that's a great example, and that's tied to the Paideia project here at the IAR. But again, those are included for you to review and enjoy.
Next item, 7, unfinished business, a budget impact, budget update.
So, this is the time of year where we're probably focusing so much on next year's budget that we forget that we actually still have a current budget that we're managing and operating through. Having said that, we don't really have anything, exciting or major. We're kind of moving along. Things are kind of right where they should be, and we're kind of in a good place. But happy to, answer any questions about this year's current budget if anybody has.
All right. Next item is 8, new business, approval of the educational specifications for the Irving A. Robbins Middle School asbestos flooring abatement project. So, hang on, I'll get there. I need a motion.
I move to approve the educational specifications for the Irving A. Robbins Middle School asbestos flooring abatement project as presented.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
So just to provide some context for this, the Irving Robbins flooring project was something that had been approved or is approved in the capital budget, project budget. We were looking to move forward. Probably a little bit kind of like the Noah Wallace, sometimes you do some sampling and you think you're all good with abatement, and then you poke around a little more and you find out that, and then you have a spot. So there was going to be some abatement needed. So we never say kind of that's not the bad news, but the good news though is because it needed abatement, it then made it eligible for state reimbursement. So what we were able to do is kind of, in essence, but in order to do that, we had to kind of restructure it and submit it to the state. In order to do that, the town needed to first approve. So at last month's town council meeting, they approved to create it as a separate project from, as in the other code we have, it has to be its own separate project that's in there. And so it needed, that approval. Once they did that, they also then shifted money from structural and architectural and code and safety. So we took some of the money from one, some of the money from the other that we were using for the flooring project, putting it in there. We found some other, capital money in there. And so really the cost of the abatement will probably end up getting offset by the reimbursement we'll get from the state. So I do think there's, going to be a little bit more we have to pay, but once again, the reimbursement is going to kind of offset that. So we should still be able to stay pretty close to kind of the budgetary numbers that we wanted, so it won't have a huge impact there. But now this is kind of the procedural. So the town council did their piece. We're looking for the Board of Ed to, make this motion, approve that, so we can submit it to the state and keep moving forward, so we can make our timeline of getting the work done this summer. Happy to take any questions.
Angela?
Is the reimbursement from the state guaranteed? Because I feel like with some of these projects, it's like we think we're getting the reimbursement, but then we hear, later on that something happened, it didn't go through, we weren't awarded it. So is this one of those examples where we're hoping we get a reimbursement, and what percentage or amount is that? Or is this one where we're guaranteed to get the reimbursement?
Sure.
So there's two different kinds of projects. So like the high school project is one that is voted on by the legislature as part of the larger projects in June every year. Because what we're saying is it's an abatement. That's one of the categories that do not need to be approved by the legislature. They have a bank of dollars. So when town council appropriated the money in a separate account for us, they had 3 motions that they put together as well. One to make the Board of Education as the building project for the committee. One to authorize us to put together schematic designs for the project. And then the other is to authorize the BOE to apply for grant status. So is it guaranteed that they approve the grant? No, but once they approve the grant, then you are guaranteed for the amount that they say is eligible to be reimbursed for that portion of the project.
I think it's like 32.7% is Farmington's eligibility for reimbursement. There's a whole formula in this house, so some towns get a little more, some towns get a little less. Farmington's currently, I believe, is 32.7.
So we would get 32%. if it gets approved, but we're not guaranteed the approval.
And what's important to know is 32.7% of the eligible parts. There are some parts of that project that the state's going, we're not going to reimburse you for that. Like it should be 32.7% of the abatement of it. And I believe there's maybe some other parts that we can get some reimbursement for.
Anywhere we have to abate the floors, they're going to look at the portion of the project where abatement is required, and the reflooring in those areas will also be reimbursable. But where we have the addition in 1992, I think, at Irving Robbins, those areas do not have abatement associated, so that 35% of the flooring will not be reimbursable. I've never seen it where a project that is reimbursable, such as an abatement, a roof project, I've never seen it where they didn't get approved by the state.
Okay, awesome.
And so I also want to maybe clarify for when we talk about state grants, for special education excess cost grant, that's one where they kind of tell you you're going to get this percentage over that 4.5 times, but then you're never quite sure.
Right.
The statute says it's 100%, but it's never 100%. Sometimes it's 65%, 70%, and that's where last year, remember, they gave us that extra.
Yeah, this is different than that.
This one is I'd say exceptionally reliable.
Okay.
For reimbursing the eligible costs.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Other questions? So we have a motion, we have a second. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item B, capital improvement budget 2026-27.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 capital funding projects as presented.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Great, happy to work you through. Once again, this kind of also talks a little bit, Andrea, you were talking about the prior report. Here we utilize this as well as some of the other, kind of drivers of how we develop our capital projects piece in there. And once again, I'm going to go probably a little bit quick just for sake of time and also because I believe you may have seen the presentation in there. And so some of the highlights, obviously for the last couple of years, obviously the high school and the central office, the cafeteria equipment replacements, the RTU over at IAR, the Westridge roof, which was a big project that we completed last year. Then, some of the switches, access points network, once again, maintaining the critical technology infrastructure. There's a lot of classroom AV upgrades, the displays here at IAR, all updated. And once again, part of that premier security review, which, as we said, we'll probably see, within a year or two, probably us putting in a prior review that's kind of a next level work. And once again, sometimes we always have those unanticipated things. So, union school, ceiling pipe installation abatement, wall staff room floor abatement, IR classroom floor abatement. So some things there, that cut off the in process. Oh. Go back to the slide. Oh, got it. I fixed it. Oh, thank you. Got it. Currently we are working with Landmark Architecture to give us schematics for elementary HVAC designs, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. We're currently working to get a union cafeteria main office design. And that one, they're actually looking at a variety of like a kind of small, medium, big type renovation to see. And so when we have that, we'll move forward presenting that. And then the all famous IAR generator transfer switch that we all know and love. That one actually just got installed last week. Thursday, Friday. And now we're just looking for some time when school's not in session, maybe February break, April vacation, somewhere in there where we need everything offline so we can switch it over, and then that project will happily be completed in there. So that's just kind of some of the highlights and kind of where we're going. Once again, for those, just as a reminder, these are the big buckets. So for example, that IR flooring was across school coded safety, structural, architectural. We then moved it so it's in its own, basically it'll be in its own bucket. So for technology, recommending $550,000. Here are some of the projects looking to include. Security, $175,000. And just as a reminder, especially for some new board members, one of the terms we use is banking. So sometimes we will put money in the capital project because maybe a project is going to be $200,000 and we don't want to put that all in one shot. So maybe we'll put $50,000 in the capital budget for every year for 4 years until we can get to that. So then we can complete that project and this way kind of be able to do it over time. Here are security, some of the projects we're looking to do, code and safety, compliance. Just to be able to see some of those projects we're talking about for West District. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Structural, architectural. And this is your eye vision test for the night. If you want to see, this is the K4 HVAC projects. Kind of broke it down. We had initially, and I'll have these guys help me out, we had initially kind of looked and kind of banked, or not banked, we kind of estimated it being about $60 million for, $4 million for each school. Looking at that right now, the estimates are coming in, even though we still have to do some things, I'll say under that, kind of looking at that. One of the questions that between Board of Ed and the town will have to kind of decide is, that has it kind of built in with escalation costs, as you can imagine, with inflation every year, things and materials cost, and so trying to figure out what something will cost 4 years from now can be kind of difficult. So there's some estimating in there. But one of the questions or decisions that might need to get made is the possibility of looking to do all 4 of the projects maybe across 2 years. We think trying to do it all in 1 year, all 4 schools, might be overly ambitious, and we want to make sure that we can kind of build some things. But doing it in 2 years could potentially bring some of that, the escalation costs that are there out a little bit, a little bit more known. It's easier to predict 2 years out than 4 years out, obviously, and taking a look at that. But that's something that I know has been discussed over the past couple of years about K4 HVAC, and so that is where we currently are with that. Once again, some out-year projects that we're looking at. And here would be the summary. Excluding the HVAC projects at the 14 million and change, capital looking at 1.15 million for those current projects. That, happy to take over. Sorry, here's our kind of 7-year mapping out. Any questions?
Angela?
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
So, I know. Okay, 2 questions. One I'll table for a second. The technology infrastructure, I was surprised to see an increase in that, just because I would have thought with the FHS being new and maybe seeing like nothing, I'm assuming none of that's going towards FHS, considering that's like brand new, but correct me if I'm wrong. What is the increase coming from? Because I would have thought we would have seen savings, because we weren't applying any of that. I would assume technology infrastructure to FHS because it's brand new, and we're still seeing an increase when that whole building, in my thought process, would be not included in this.
Sure, I'm going to defer Matt.
Yeah. So we used that, the technology capital to help fund the new switchgear and wireless access points at the new high school during the building. And that was because the reimbursement rate was higher if I did it through E-rate and utilized capital dollars. What you see here, many of these items are like sub-banking accounts. So core infrastructure and servers is stuff that a little bit of money is put in each year, and I work closely with my counterpart on the town side. We actually have shared infrastructure, and we're due in the next year for replacement, so we've been banking money along. The 550 is actually below the projection. So our current projections over the next 7 years is about $575,000 each year in technology, and that cuts across the entire district, and it's based on a schedule of projects that I've identified and estimated costs over the course of those. And I adjust when I bring my proposal forward, I adjust based on cost estimates and also what's truly achievable in the summertime or over the course of the next year. So the 550 is slightly below the 575 estimate. Some key items that are in there for this coming year are we continue to do data wiring projects. Last summer, Westwoods was funded through capital for a complete rewire of the building. This summer, I'm looking at Irving Robbins, which doesn't need a complete rewire, but we are looking at a refresh of wireless access points now at all of our other schools other than the high school. And in order to do that, we're going to one access point per classroom. So I have to add additional wiring into the building in order to accomplish that. That funding, this capital funding, gets paired with E-rate reimbursement, which is for us currently it's 40%. So I put through an RFP through USAC, which is the U.S. agency that manages that they approve, we purchase, but each year we chip away at it. So it's not, well, there isn't a whole lot in here for the high school for this year, true, because we just built the new high school. There's a lot in here that is being applied to the other 6 schools moving forward.
Okay. And then just from my understanding, because I feel like I always see these MEP, the mechanical ventilation projects. So that's separate. Can someone just explain that again? Because I feel like I get confused with it. So we're voting on the slide where, yeah, we're not voting on that total number. Are you saying you want to put this into the total number this year, this 14 million? Like, I'm just confused by that.
You're talking about the HV with the 14 million.
Say that one more time.
It sounds like you're talking about the 14 million about how that.
Yeah, because so that would be that's like an extra, that's like a special project that you guys are talking about. We've talked about that last year too, but then it didn't come to fruition. So how is that included in here? I'm just a little confused. So last year the town council approved for this, the 1.3 million.
Yeah.
The 1.3 million there. But now this year, because you're including that MEP ventilation project, you're saying that bucket's going to be 15 million. Am I reading that correctly?
So last, yeah. So because we're looking at those HVAC projects as state reimbursable, they end up having to be called out as separate items. The town, at that dollar level, the town tends to prefer to bond that money. What we're proposing is here's the dollar figure. We continue to work with Joe Speckey on how they want to structure the financing. They may say we're going to bond over 4 years. We're going to bond over 2 years and split it out. The town council and the finance director they make that decision. We put forward the total dollar amount in last year's capital 7-year projection. Each one of those line items had 4 million in it. We've now adjusted it based on our current cost estimate. So yes, what you're approving is 1.15 million in cash capital dollars, and the project of 14 and change that the town council and Joe, the finance director, they'll decide how they may bond that. But we're asking for the full approval of it up front.
And is that how it was done last year?
They didn't approve it.
They didn't approve it last year. For the 7-year, we just kind of put it on their radar. Hey, this year we're going to be asking for this really large sum.
Okay.
And so for them to because they might also then have some other projects, police, fire department, something else, and so they're gonna want to try to figure out, okay, how do they space this out, for all their various projects. So that's why we try to work with them to say, hey, just so you know, this is where we're going, and so they see that 7-year out and know that,
A similar example in 27-28, you see 1.2 million there, which we're projecting for the union cafeteria. So that's not being approved as giving us that money this year. That's us projecting out that we're expecting to come to you and then to town council next year with something close to that as we're working through getting our estimates.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to look at last year to just kind of recenter myself with it. But when you say reimbursement again, these are not 100% reimbursable.
So, again,
Correct.
so that's you're touching the point that I was gonna add on this.
Yeah.
We didn't present these last year because the state had ended the 2-year grant process that had all sorts of stipulations with it that were gonna make it difficult for us to get it done through that grant program. But in the meanwhile, the legislature has added HVAC as a reimbursable project. So similar to abatement or a roof, HVAC project upgrades are now a reimbursable category for state reimbursement, school construction grant reimbursement. And so that's why we're bringing it forward as 4 separate projects.
In more of a reimbursement, like you would equate it to how you talked about the abatement reimbursement. Because previously there's been discussion about reimbursement, but then you guys have come back and said we didn't get it. Like we applied for a grant, I thought, for some reimbursement, and then we never got the grant.
Because for 2 years, it was a competitive grant process, and the competitive grant had stipulations such as you have to have the money already, which benefits a town that doesn't have to go to a referendum, but it's very difficult for a town like Farmington that has to go and put something forward at referendum. Also a stipulation, you had to be done within 1.5 years with the project, so that made it difficult for us to say we were gonna have 4 HVAC upgrades done in 1.5 years, it just wasn't feasible.
Yeah. Now it's in a different, for lack of better words, it's in a different grant, different bucket, different category. So there's a different set of rules. It's the rules that are more aligned with a school construction, like the high school, like we're gonna do with the IAR flooring. So it's whatever's eligible for reimbursement should be around that 32.7. You know, they might, you know, I don't know if they lock in the reimbursement. I think it fluctuates a little bit every year.
They post it every year.
But they post every, but it's usually within that range. So we're hoping that for the eligible pieces of those projects that we'll be able to get around 32% reimbursement.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot to wrap my head around.
Yeah,
That. Yeah,
that's fine.
No, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I just wanted to comment on, then I'll get to you, Matt. So what we're looking at tonight is what is recommended for capital improvement requests. And if we approve this, it goes forward to the town council, I believe on January 27th. 27th, where it'll get presented to the town council. And as Sam and Dan indicated, the council really decides what they're going to do with the money and how they're going to spend it. And in this budget, they're able to say what the money can be spent on, correct, in the capital, versus in operating, they can reduce, but the superintendent makes recommendations of where that would happen, correct?
Without getting too technical about it, yes.
All right.
Yes, the town council has the purview when it comes to capital to direct us into which areas they would like to see cut and specific dollar amounts. Usually still based on our recommendations, but more especially when it comes to these larger bonding projects, they have that purview to decide whether or not to move forward.
Matt.
Yeah, thank you. So the 14,339,000, is that the gross, or is that after the anticipated state reimbursement?
Gross.
Okay. So in theory, if we get reimbursed 30%, the net is 30% less than that the town of Farmington would have to pay?
Without getting into that ineligible.
Not 30, right.
There will be portions where they'll say this is ineligible.
Sure.
But yes, the anticipated grant reimbursement is approximately 30% of that.
Got it. Second question, right? We're just approving the 14 million. It still sounds like the construction years may change versus what's on this page, right? Just dialing in that and curious how you decided, West District is year 1 and East Farms is year 2. How do you think about that?
So the primary reason we identified West District as the first school to complete is, if you remember, we were able to use some of the excess funding from cafeteria funding to use improvements. And so we were able to put HVAC upgrades at all 3 of the other elementary schools so that their cafeterias have HVAC and C in them. West District, we did submit the same thing. Without getting into a long detailed story of it, the state actually approved us to do that project. As we were moving along the project, halfway through, they said, actually, no, we changed our mind, you're not eligible for it, so we had to stop that project. There wasn't any, loss of money or anything in there, but we weren't allowed to move forward with that project unless we did it as either a major project that we're operating or a capital budget, but we couldn't use our excess funding in there. So having that, I don't want to say putting West District at a disadvantage, we felt that we wanted to kind of put them first and looking at that piece of it. The other one that, we're still kind of looking at with Union is, with the potential renovation there to see how that might play out. That kind of might, see where maybe there might be some intersectionality in there. And so that piece kind of looking at that. Regardless, the thing right now, what we're finding out from Landmark, who's overseeing and kind of giving schematics, is all the 4 schools are going to need some electrical upgrades. And so the thought process is to be able to kind of get this, what we'll probably do mostly a summer project, is if we wanted to do this as a 2-year project or sooner, it might be where we potentially might do, once again, we wouldn't do all 4 schools in 1 year, but potentially it's do all of the electrical upgrades for all 4 schools during one summer, and then the next summer do the actual installation of the thing, and then maybe even get them all at the same time. So that's just one, I'll say, theory, hypothesis. We're still kind of working out those, working with Landmark to kind of see where what would be the best course of action on that.
Yeah, just one follow-up to this, okay? Right, so my next question was, it sort of looks on the page like it's 4 separate projects, right? Where it's 4 separate schools, but it sounds like there's a benefit to thinking about these as just one big district-wide project, right? That happens to be for 4 different schools. Is that how you're looking at it when you're thinking about the construction management of this? And if there are benefits to thinking about this as one district project that happens to be at 4 buildings?
I think one reason that you would want to put it forward as 4 projects is that you're touching every bit of town. Every student that goes to that grade level, they see their school as being part of that, as opposed to going 4 separate times and asking people who may not be as vested in that school, a particular school that's on the ballot as another. So that's one reason that would do it. I'm not sure how much economies of scale we'll get out of it. There's probably not a lot of larger contractors that would try to take on 4 projects of this size at the same time. We'll probably have various contractors. Perhaps you get somebody that does 2 of them. What we did see is when we put out the design, is that we had one designer, Landmark Facilities Group, that was significantly lower as a bid package for all 4 than they were individually for the 4. So we did save some money on the design itself that way.
Although it was also interesting to note, there was one firm who did not want to even try to project, estimates 3 or 4 years. And they're like, no, we want, we can't kind of give you that kind of estimate because we don't even have a no, we don't even want to give you an idea. So those are some of the other challenges of kind of there. So, like you said, right now, we're working with Landmark. They've kind of given us estimates. We wanted to make sure that we had a good, kind of outlined estimate. Like you said, last year was kind of just 4 million, 4 million, 4 million, 4 million, just as kind of a placeholder. You could see that there is some variance across the schools. One over 4 million, one still under 3 million. And so still, like you said, I don't want to ever not acknowledge a $1.5 million, but still kind of within that ballpark. It's not like it's cut in half, or it's not double its price, right? It's still within there, and there still might be, some escalation up or down, with that piece of it. But we wanted to make sure for budget time we had a number that we felt comfortable moving forward with.
Actually, Matt just reminded me as well. The other part of this, which fits in with your question, is that for state reimbursement, these need to be 4 separate projects. They'll need to see 4 individual schools and costs listed on, even if you go for referendum for 14 million, you'll have to say how much for each project as well.
but it'll still be one person overseeing the project over here. So, so there you have.
Andrea, just to clarify, so we're calling it the ventilation. Is this complete air conditioning in the entire building? To be honest, I'm thrown off a little bit because this wasn't on my radar for tonight. Because I feel like we're still paying off the high school. Is that what this is? Is this the full AC in the building? What is this exactly?
So the focus of this project is to bring fresh air, conditioned, in other words, dehumidified and tempered fresh air into the building, into the classrooms. So this is a classroom-focused project. So that's done by one system, and then another system will do air conditioning within the classrooms as well. So there was, but it will still be a system where we can add on if the other areas of the building, potentially this wouldn't touch certain offices or, we're air conditioned in most libraries at this point, so it doesn't really interrupt with the Union Library expansion.
The school, they have cafeteria, air conditioning, have those,
Right.
some main offices are there. So so the primary focus is classrooms in there, but it does also then have the, you'll probably like this, part of like when we talk about the scope, the continued, there may be, out 3-5 years, a major project or a capital project that is I can't think of a good example, but a section, maybe it's a few department offices that weren't air conditioned that we would be able to just put a unit in that doesn't need the electrical upgrade, doesn't, it has pretty much everything there. It's really just kind of maybe adding, with a rooftop unit or something in there. But that, once again, the structure is there. So the cost of it would be, more on a major project, maybe capital, but most likely a major project to add, to build on to those pieces. But the focus is on the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions, comments? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain, Andrea.
Okay, so 8 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention. Next item, where are we now? C, approval of 2-year charge of standing committees.
I move to approve the Board of Education committee charges as presented.
Second.
Discussion? No, it's not. I don't know, who's in charge of the slides?
Oh, I don't think that they're not, they're there, yeah.
Yeah, they're there. All right. Any questions or discussion about the charges? We have 4 standing committees: personnel, negotiations, policy, curriculum, and communications. Later this evening, I'll hand out a document where you can prioritize which committees you have an interest in. Generally, each committee has 3 members and 1 person is the chair. So any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And next item, D, review of the 2026-2027 school year calendar. This is a first reading. I need a motion. No, the one that's written.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 school year calendar as presented for a first reading.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
So to begin the calendar discussion, I think it's important, especially for our new board members, kind of take a little trip down memory lane to what's transpired this fall. And so what you see up on the screen, there's a few slides here that just kind of capture what's led us here this evening. So I'll read.
sorry to interrupt, is that the?
There you go.
There you go.
So this is verbose, but just to get, get everyone on the same page. So per calendar policy 611 and administrative regulation 611A, in January of each calendar year, the Board of Education will approve a 2-year school calendar. So for this year, it'd be 26-27, 27-28, through a first and a second reading. However, at several recent Board of Education meetings, we received public comment from community members, including FPS students and families, requesting the addition of Eid to the school year calendar as a day off for future school year calendars. During the November 11th, 2025 Board of Education meeting, the board, by consensus, recommended that the policy committee meet to discuss the impact of adding Eid as a day off in future school calendars. On December 4th, the policy committee met. I was actually able to attend that meeting, even though I was not officially in my role yet. And we discussed the impact of adding the additional day off for Eid in the school year calendar. And that was adding, and that would also mean us revising our regulations for the future. During the meeting, the policy committee also reviewed sample 2-year calendars following the current policy and administrative regulations, and sample 2-year calendars following the current policy and administrative regulations with the addition of Eid as a day off. And I think, no, go back one slide. I think we're still, no, I guess.
No recommendations.
So after a thorough review and discussion of the policy, administrative regulation, and the board's decision-making criteria for calendar approval, the policy committee recommended the following for the full board's consideration: that the Board of Education consider directing the superintendent to provide 2 calendars along with the policy and the regulations for discussion at the full board meeting today, January 12th, 2026. And so what you have with you tonight, actually, you had in the packet what we might say is like version 4 or 5.0 of the calendar revisions. And part of that was, as I began to work with the team to look through the calendar, we realized that one piece of this work is also identifying the date that some of the holidays and cultural celebrations actually occur, because they move year to year based on different factors. And so we looked at it, I'd say about a dozen times over the last week. And so we realized late today that there was a couple of errors on the calendar in the packet. So Dee was kind enough to bring over an updated sample of the 26-27 calendar, so you should have that at your seats this evening. And it's probably the easiest to look right at that because it's the most updated and accurate calendar that we have. And so you'll see in the packet here, and I know we're just talking about the 26-27 calendar, a version A for 26-27, which would be in line with the current policy and administrative regulations, and then a second version which has the addition of Eid. And so really that difference would be in the version, if you look in the month of March, on Wednesday the 10th, you'll see that date highlighted in blue, and blue indicates an additional holiday / vacation day where no school is in session. You should have those too. I tried to put them up on a slide, but again, to Dan's site, reference, it's a little hard to read up off of the screen, but it's probably easiest to look at them side by side in front of you.
So I just wanted to comment. So the motion we have on the table is for the 2026-2027 calendar that follows our policy and regulations, our current policy and regulations. But this also gives us the opportunity to discuss adding Eid as potential vacation, holiday, school closing. So I'll open it up to questions, comments. All right, Beth.
Thought maybe I'd jump in as chair of policy and just kind of also fill in some of the timeline. But so when we met as a policy committee, we took the opportunity to have a really thorough discussion about all the different things that come into play when we're looking at adding a school closure day. And I appreciate Jess being there, coming from a different district and having, just different experience about, this is obviously an issue that every district has to contend with and do as a part of their role. So there are a lot of factors that I think it's important for all of us to kind of lay out there as part of the process. And just what you brought to the discussion that I thought was really helpful, because I don't remember looking at it quite this way before, but just looking at where we are in our district with partial weeks, and this can fluctuate from year to year depending on how vacations and holidays fall and school closures. And we have our professional development days that also play into this as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I remember you saying was we're at, and I think that might have been for this current year, or maybe the one that we're looking at, 26, 27, 16 partial weeks?
So we're at 15 without the addition of Eid,
Okay.
and we would move to 16 with the addition. Now that, to your point, that's half days, weeks where there's a holiday scheduled. That's, we're considering if there's a half day of school that it's a partial week. Yeah.
Right, so full days Monday through Friday would be our full
Monday through
weeks.
Friday, 9 to 5.
And is that at 23? I don't know the number of weeks in the school year, but I
So
thought I remember 20.
that would be like 39 total weeks. It's not necessary, because of the way some weeks fall, like a week like with Thanksgiving found in it, where there might be 2 days of school. So we're required to have a 180-day school year per state statute. So based on how that falls, it's the school year being spread out over 39 weeks.
Okay, so it's a total of 39 weeks. So we're up there, and partial weeks, I think I bring that up because what I've heard both anecdotally, and I think there's some data around it, and maybe you can offer some input there with what happens to our attendance in partial weeks.
So that's a tricky question to answer. Because it kind of depends on how the partial week falls. So, for example, if there's a Wednesday off, you're not as likely to see the impact on attendance as if there's a Friday or a Monday, when families will take advantage and use it to travel. Another thing we might see is, so to give you an example of that, if Monday is a holiday, the Friday before that Monday, we might see, an impact on attendance because families are going to extend that trip. The other place we see it too, though, in full transparency, is we know some of those are things we select ourselves as a district. So if we schedule like a PD day on a Friday, we know there may be an impact there. So school week with conferences, for example, if we have like 3 half days in a row, we may see an impact on attendance there. I mean, we want our students here every day, all day, but we also, if you're going to take advantage of that, that's where a family will look, because we're constantly promoting that they look at the calendar and they make wise decisions about days that their students miss school. So to give you like a specific impact, it's really tricky because of how that falls.
Wow.
Literally falls.
Somebody's trying to tell us.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's like a ghost of something.
Might be easier to leave them down.
I know. Where
Yeah, you might remember last year's board meeting where this year we're getting all new gym mats. But,
Security camera has Lisa pulling them off just a little bit early.
yeah, so I wish I had a better answer for you, but
That's
it is tricky about the, I mean, I think what we would tell you as school leaders is what we know about it has more to do with where those days fall and human behavior than it does about it being a school holiday.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. But the more partial weeks we have, potential for just weeks where we may not see as strong attendance as usual. It's just one of those factors.
I think it opens up conversation and work for us to be considering as a leadership team, you know, as we're presenting these calendars to you, there's pieces that we may decide as a community we want to add or adjust holidays, but also that we have to be aware as a leadership team presenting a calendar what that might mean for us as we schedule PD days or other things that are, you know, within our control.
Right.
Mhm.
There I might have more later, but.
Jess, can you talk a little bit more about some of the criteria for the decision making that's in our regulations?
Sure. There is there are two slides that have the regulations up there. So there is, I have lots of calendars and forms.
That one, yeah, that one's policy.
Should be, if you keep going forward after.
I think it's
yeah,
the next one.
yeah, so, no, I think that's correct. Go back one more, Dan. Yeah, so this one, so if you look in our regulations, it's really broken up into two pieces. The first regulation you'll see up there speaks to some of these broader, like guiding principles, if you will. So you see things like optimizing learning time. So Beth, kind of to your point there, you know, as we're organizing these, the less disruption in the day. There's years where it falls where we might have several holidays in September, and it might feel like a disjointed start. And so what we're always looking to do is like, how do we really get the most bang for our buck in terms of instructional minutes throughout the school year? We're, you know, you heard reference about testing and data. We were looking at our performance profile. How do we know as educators, you've got like these two windows of about 11, 12 weeks from like the first day of school till December vacation, and then from like January 1st till April vacation, and like how do we maximize time within those days? You know, another one is that it's aligned with our FBS vision, mission, goals, core beliefs, equity framework, right? So we're comparing it. You heard some of our students speak this evening to the connection of feeling recognized as important members of the community. That might be an example of something that ties to that belief. You'll see a couple, and I really kind of pull these together about student, faculty, health and wellness, and then like staff recruitment and retention. What I would say about that is the wellness and the health piece is probably tied well to that they're strategically planned breaks, right? Like throughout the year that, when you look at traditionally, well, I think many districts moved away from like a February vacation is we had this long vacation in December and beginning of January. And then again, 4 or 5 weeks later, we were taking another week off when we might not necessarily need it. And so those are carefully spaced out. And the teacher and recruitment piece is really tied to, as an educator myself and married to a teacher and then 2 children who are in a different school system that we're working to, be on the same page with other districts in Connecticut so that families are, having the same. I would say from a recruitment standpoint, however, and we kind of talked about, we're talking through some of these today. You'd have to get pretty extreme, I think, to have an impact on recruitment. Starting school October 1st and ending, July 30th. I would imagine it would have to be pretty extreme. But I think that's the spirit of that. we talk about facilities, as Dan, Matt, and Sam, spoke about this evening, that's the time we get our projects done, is in the summer. And some of those projects take an extended period of time, right? And so we need to shut down schools, quite frankly, to be able to do that work under our, current plans. Obviously, being aligned with law and state statutes, so 180 days. A lot of them speak to not going beyond June 30th in terms of, the end of the school year. But then you see down at the, also included there is like community feedback. We heard a lot of community feedback over the last couple of months about, us considering the addition of the Eid holiday in our calendar. And then really, the kind of all other duties as assigned, like all other considerations that might impact our decision to adjust or make changes to our calendar. So those are like the guiding principles, if you will. And then if you go to that next page, Dan, this is where, when we think about, sitting down and putting a plan together, it gets into, this is where the regulations, if, we are to move forward, would most likely need an update, because you see some that would not need to change, school beginning on the Monday prior to Labor Day, but there are specific references in this document that speak to those holidays in which school would not be in session. So we'd be looking to make revisions. So this was last revised a couple of years ago with the addition of Diwali to the school calendar.
Questions, comments? Not.
So I'll just preface this by saying, obviously I support professional development, PDs. I was just curious, I was doing a count here. 7 of the weeks that Beth mentioned that are partial are due to PD days, right? So I was curious, how do you think about scheduling those, or is there a minimum number, a maximum number, fitting those into this sort of web of 180 days or so?
Yeah, good question. So, Farmington certainly opted to take this approach of spacing out these, and they're not actually a half day, they're like a partial day. So there's, a shortened day, I guess is the best way to describe them, to space them out. And it is somewhat front loaded, as you can see. Again, most school leaders will tell you that if, just like we're thinking about for our students about that first bullet about optimizing learning time, we know the best time to do that for our staff is at the beginning of a school year as much as we can. And so you'll see that pretty heavy at the beginning. But then we do need opportunities throughout the year to touch base with them, to continue the momentum, and have follow through on any training. What's interesting is we've got this approach where we take the 2 back-to-back days, and the idea of that is so that it's connected and we can really build from day 1 in day 2. And it's not that I get some information today, I don't hear about this again for weeks to come. Matt, to answer your question, I think that what we would really be charged to do is, as we continue to think about changes we may want to make to the calendar, we're going to have to be looking at things like those half PD days and deciding if we have to make tweaks, move them, what other ideas we might, like that is something, that is a piece we would have control over, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on that before I forget. So, some of these holidays that we have, they move from year to year.
Do. Correct.
So what you're saying is, if some of these move, well, they are going to move from year to year, and when you do present the calendars, you might consider moving when we do PD.
Yes. So that's an interesting
days.
piece of this. So one of the things that we looked at as a team was based on the, and one of our students spoke to this evening, that interestingly enough, this year, Lunar New Year, I think, right, fell on the Monday of President's Day. Is that what it was? Thank you. Sorry, too many calendars swirling. But so that same is true for Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Diwali, and Eid. they also move. And so some years they'll fall on a weekday and would impact, a school day, and on others they're not. And so really, some work like a calendar may have to look different year to year based on the way they fall. And so we would just need some flexibility to understand that moving forward.
Erica? Yeah. Go ahead.
Been a learning experience, listening to this. And, one of the things that I know each of us on this board is we do value the voices of our young people. We value the voices of our students, value the voices of our staff on the district. So just want to make a couple comments because it's a place of pride to see the number of kids and students and families coming to speak during public comment. It's also, at times, and I'm not sure if it's going to come out right in the way I want to say this, but at times concerning for how some of those comments, some of the things we heard in the comments. And so I just want to take this moment because to help to, I hope that this helps to ensure our community and our students and our families that their voices absolutely matter. And, that we have, you explained the process, you explained our policy and our process for how we take holidays or, cultural representation into consideration into our calendar. So there is a policy, there is a process, and those things are very important to keep. It's because that helps to create consistency in our educational environment and create consistency in our community and environment, right? And so I just want to be very clear that this board, even with, I believe from what I've learned of even the new board members, and then the previous representation of the board, we're not ignoring our community. We're not ignoring our students. We're trying to follow a process. We are also listening, and we are learning. And we're not dismissing our students. We're not dismissing our community. We're not dismissing their diverse representation. In fact, their diverse representation and their cultural representation, their religious representation is what makes Farmington such a great community to live in. This is why we excel in Farmington. We are united, and I feel just proud of that. So please, for our community members and our students, because it's so important for our students, when we are up here, we value your opinions, we listen to you, we are learning, and I would want that all of those students that came to speak to know that. And not to walk away from these meetings feeling like they're not being heard. They are being heard, and we're learning about you, we're learning about who you are. It's just making us better. And we just have to, there's a process and a policy that we have to adhere to. And so with that, I just felt like each of these months, I felt like it's hard for us to comment because there is a policy around that as well. So just wanted to take this time because we are considering this 2-year calendar. And that's the other thing I want to make sure we put on record. We have a policy, it's a 2-year calendar, and I hope that it's not something that we adjust because I think our families and our students, that creates consistency in our schedules as well in our day-to-day lives. And so to have a 2-year calendar to see and be able to anticipate ahead is also very critical for planning purposes for families and so forth and for our educators and our students.
Erica, can I just stop you for a sec? We need to move past 10 o'clock. So I move to extend this meeting past 10 o'clock.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry to interrupt.
Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. We'll move past them.
Is
Thank
that
you.
Can
Sorry.
I continue? Sorry.
No,
keep
So,
going.
so I guess I'll end with that. It is important, each of us are volunteers. We volunteer for a reason. We're passionate for this. We're passionate about our students, and we're proud of our community, and we're proud of our students and our families that support our students and our educators that support our students. So this is not an easy lift. This is a very difficult lift. And I'm happy that we're here and having this conversation, but just wanted to clarify on that, and thank you for explaining the process and what to consider. So some of the things too, in the sense of, when we talk about adjustment of the calendar either to add or take away a day, what are the implications of all of these snow days? So we are required by law 180 days, right? So how far out does that put us if we were to have multiple snow days adding, how far does that put us out? And also considering the fact that not all of our buildings have air conditioning, to your point earlier, not all of our buildings have air conditioning. My family went to West District, and I remember when we had those heat waves, those few years, whatever it was, we had to put those big fans in the hallways. We had to leave, it was stifling hot. And I know we're going to fix that, but not every space and so forth. And so what does that put us out? How far out would we be going if we were talking about snow days and adding days?
So good question. The snow day piece is a hard one to answer because, but I will tell you, I've never paid attention to the weather so much my entire. So what we looked at was and again, so we've been in communication with representatives of, each of these subsets of our community to inform us because of the movement of the holidays. And so, again, we as we project out, and I think I think it was safe to say that we can go out so far. I know, Dan, you had, looked into this a little bit, but based on where we kind of went out and felt safe, the first time we would hit all 4 holidays falling in the same year would be 2029, 2030. That would be in the same year on let me just clarify, same year on a weekday. And so this past year, we had 3. And so if you think about that in context, the last day of school, I believe, was scheduled initially for June 10th, right? So an additional day or two, you have to look at the 29-30 calendar and see where that falls. And, you may move into the next week and start to be around the 12th or the 13th in that year. But interestingly enough, most other years, again, because of the movement, you might have 2 of the days that fall during the week. Sometimes you might have 3. And so, again, going back to some of the conversation we were having before, does that mean in some of those years that we may, based on when the first day of school is, right, because that can be the driving factor, would we have to maybe look at and consider when a target last day of school might be for us? So we currently have a target first day of school, but we don't have a last day. And so would we have to think about we'd really like to be finished with school by June 12th. I'm just throwing a date out there. And so when we do this, what does that mean we have to adjust for? We've had mild winters. It's probably not wood, but the last few years. But, this year we've already seen a lot more action, in terms of ice and snow than we have the last few years. So it's hard to know with snow days.
So would there, 2 more questions. So would there be any consideration in the sense of that adjusted calendar, any consideration around whether the February break to reducing it to that, reducing it to 1 day, or maybe would it even impact spring break and reducing some spring break days?
Those are certainly all things that you can consider. But what I would say, though, Erica, is, again, I think we'd have to want to have some real careful thought and discussion about that, because as we go back to, student staff health and wellness and teacher and staff recruitment and some of those things, again, the February day I don't know the impact of that. You know, I know from past experience, years that you impact April vacation, like that is one of those times where we kind of need a break, and I think you would see an impact there if you proactively impacted that. I know I've lived through years where we had so many snow days that we had to take days from April vacation, and it gets messy.
Yeah, no, and I bring these questions up because we've had in the policy committee, some of these are the areas in which, consideration and discussions, and just wanting to make sure that our community members are aware of how much thought we put into this and all the questions that we are, debating about and discussing about and so forth.
Right.
The other thing, sorry, I do have one more, just realizing.
And Eric, can I say, well, and just why that's important is because reducing the half PD days won't have an impact on that. You would have to look at full days and decide, where you might want to move.
The other thing too is Excel. So we have, for some, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I'm for my youngest one, I still use Excel, but Excel is made available for during some of those holidays, right? For families who need it, who are employed and need childcare and and so forth. So is that's something else that you could consider it of for this?
Sure.
Correct?
I mean, I think that whenever school's not in session, there's an impact to families with childcare, and I mean, the good news is we have a close partnership with Excel, so certainly we could communicate with them and partner with them on changes to the calendar. I think the later in June you go, you would likely see an impact because camps start, sooner today than it feels like they ever did. And we even sometimes when we push out late after several snow days start to see an impact there. That does happen.
Yeah. And for our community, a lot of parents use Finding Trails, or they use a lot of the Excel camp and so forth. So I'm sure we would coordinate all, that would be another operational practice to coordinate and work with those. Because we do have a significant number of employed parents or working parents. And so I guess, thank you for answering my questions. My last comment, I think that, so this is, this board, our board, this, we are listening. We are paying attention and we are learning, and we want to take into account all the voices of the families, our students, the staff, and we want to honor the fact that we are a good representation, not only culturally, religiously, but also economically. That's another thing too. We have a diverse economic of families in Farmington. So, all that to say, I mean, I support us moving this forward for a second read, but I just wanted to make sure that, some of these, thought processes that we've been discussing are also put out there because, again, there is a process for this. Thank you. Matt.
Just as a clarifying question, are we in this motion considering calendar A or calendar B, or is that part of the discussion which one we're deciding to move forward?
So that's what I was saying before. The motion on the table is to consider the calendar that follows our current policy. And
so calendar A.
Regulations, yes.
Okay.
In order to, if we wanted to move forward with calendar B, the one that includes Eid, we would need an amended motion.
Got it. I would support calendar B and amending the motion. I just think for three reasons. One, I think based on the 9 bullet points listed, right, I think the community support to me outweighs sort of all of the others, right? And obviously we saw, and I paid attention before I was on the board, just kind of hearing that. Two, we're still sort of going to school for 180 days. We're not reducing the number of days, right? We're just sort of adding one extra day here, which is, again, I think something that is not as disruptive as going back to calendar A from what we heard in the community. I think that creates more disruption in our community school setting if we stayed with calendar A. And I think 3, there's certainly, I acknowledge, an additional risk of a bad winter year with the floating holidays. There's 4 of them on a weekday. Does that certainly increase the risk of potentially going more into June or At the worst case, the messy scenario, the superintendent mentioned like losing an April break day, which no one wants to do. But, you know, the what ifs of those scenarios don't necessarily, for me, prevent me from, you know, wanting to support B and moving forward with, again, everything we've just heard here. And this is a public school, right? And just trying to think of all the students in the public school. So that's where I'm at. That's why I wanted clarification to see how we're going. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll add as well, and Erica, Matt, Beth, I mean, you guys nailed it. Every single point that you made, I think, are incredibly important and equally important. I think the words that ring in my head, in particularly, is our core values and our beliefs in this school system. Equity, inclusion, right? Those are the things that are in. It's to our core, and I think that is the biggest reason why I am also in support of that, as well as you know, the community feedback has been immense and cannot be ignored, especially the voices of our children, as Erica stated. I just think we need to keep that in mind. And to Matt's point, I think you bring up a good one, right? It's like, for this to get us into, you know, really late June, kind of a perfect storm, right? It would have to be a perfect storm of winter, of all of the holidays hitting on a weekday. But I think we do have, if that were to come to fruition, I do think we have some levers outside of April break that we can amend as we move forward. Whether it be the start of school, I think you know, Jesse bring up a good point, right? Is like, we have a set first day of school, but we don't have a target last day of school, right? Why is that? What is there something that we can potentially do there? I think all of those things are in play in the name of being equitable.
Just a quick question. So what James was talking about with like we have a targeted first day of school. It's the Monday before Labor Day. Mm-hmm. If we ever needed to come up with like this, you know, perfect storm scenario, and what is our ultimate like last day that we really want to consider before we go back into the calendar and opening school on days that are traditionally closed, would that require policy and regulation changes?
If you wanted to set like we'd really, our goal would be to finish school or target end of school by a certain date. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you would revise. I don't know that you would need to revise the policy, because it's really a practice, just like your target first day of school isn't necessarily driven by the policy. It's something that's part of the regulation. The trick is the setting the start of the first day is going to be something we can be really specific about, where we say it's the Monday before Labor Day. Probably just like some of these holidays move, I think if we were going to set a target end of year, we just want to do some thought about how that sounded in the regulation. Yeah. Like, you know, it would either be a day on or around, because I think if you get into saying like the second full week of June, again, based on the way the calendar falls, that might cause that might not actually help, you know, you in terms of the planning process. But we, you know, I think it would be a regulation we would state.
Angela?
A few comments, and then I do want to piggyback along with what Erica and everyone was just talking about, but a little bit more low-hanging fruit first. The yellow coding on this calendar, I find it a little confusing. I don't know if anyone else does. Like, as an example, December 2nd and through the 4th, it says like K through 8 family conferences. So K through 8 would have half days, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. Yep. But then the next yellow one says 12-3 and 12-4, 9 through 12 family conferences. So does FHS not have a half day on the 2nd?
Yes. So we struggled with this too. We struggled with this one too. So the reason there is FHS runs student-led conferences through advisory. And so each advisory section has about 12 students in it. So they don't need the 3 half days to run conferences. So they actually, again, going back to that bullet of let's maximize instructional time, they actually advocated with us to say we only need 2. So that's in response to that. In trying to group these on the same days, it is hard to mark that on the calendar. We wanted them to fall on the same days as the K-8 conferences, but just pay homage to the fact that the 9-12 students don't need a half day on that.
And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Is there maybe a way to, like, in parentheses, like K through 8 half day and then 9 through 12 half day? Because even the one on 315 to 317, is that K through 6 or is that K through 4 when you say elementary?
That's just
conferences?
elementary. There are no 7-12 conferences.
So
on
that would
day.
include Westwoods, though.
It would. So we could mark that K6.
Yeah, so maybe just a
Yeah.
little bit clearer. I don't know. If everyone else finds it okay, it's, I just thought when I looked at it, I would look quickly for the yellow and think, okay, my kids are
Yeah.
half day those days. And it was a little bit more than, you had to read into it a little bit more.
We had played around like with like do we shade like
light yellow, dark
light yellow on the
Yeah.
second. We weren't sure if that was. I guess the hope was that of all of our students, the high schoolers would be the best to communicate clarity
Yeah.
to their parents that there was.
Sure. So that was just a comment.
Yeah.
Another
No, thank
comment, and I know this happened this year, so I don't know if we just want to get ahead of it. I know, like, in the fall, Kathy came to us and said, we want to vote on giving a half day before Christmas Eve. And then we voted on it, and we did have a half day that day before Christmas Eve. I can't remember if that happened the year prior, but, like, if we're going to do that, why don't we just put that on the calendar as a half day for planning purposes? Is there a reason?
I think it was inadvertently not included in the previous calendar. That's why Kathy came to us.
So it's not here, though, as a half day.
Oh,
You're saying like the 23rd.
That's what happened. So this year,
Okay.
it wasn't on the
There's-
calendar as a half day, and then it came in like the fall, and they said, can you vote on this? And we all said, yes, of course, it makes sense, it's a half day. So I just assumed, I don't know what I assumed. I was confused, honestly, because I didn't see it here either as a half day. So if it's normally a half day, should we just include it here as a half day?
I mean, all I would say is there's not currently, I don't believe, a regulation that speaks specifically to it. I think it's, but it's certainly something we can include in the calendar. It's something that we're interested in thinking about.
I just think if we're going to do it anyway, why not just be proactive about it and have for planning purposes? But that's just because it was fresh of mind, because it had just happened in the fall. But again, I'm just giving the feedback. I'm
Kind
not
of
like
playing the
super-
role of a hero,
I'm
Angela.
not super passionate about if we can add it on, of course. And then just some comments just to go along with what Erica was saying. I totally agree. I love hearing all the commentary. I love understanding, the needs of the district, the needs of our families. And I think the process is really important because, as I'm looking at this calendar, and I like the idea that James mentioned too of maybe including a target last day, because is there an average snow day amount every year? Because in this example for next year, 2 holidays, if I'm reading correctly, Diwali and Rosh Hashanah, don't fall on a weekday. So let's say those did, and then we have 4 snow days. That brings us to the 3rd week, and where Erica said I was laughing with the camps, I mean, I just put a deposit on Winding Trails today. That's a lot of money. Parents are not going to pull their kids from those camps to come to school. So then do we say if, in consideration of all of this, if the day falls on or around the 15th or the 16th, I think we should consider the day after Columbus Day and the President's Day Tuesday as kind of levers for potentially movement. So, do we take one of those away? And do we make that a part of the policy so that when there's questions, from families in 4 years, in the 2029, 2030 of why am I ending on the 22nd because we had 4 snow days, we have something to reference, or we're looking at it and saying, well, we're anticipating the average number of snow days is 3 to 4. If this is already the end of the year and we add on 3 or 4 days, we might be in the 20s. And I don't know if families would be okay with that based on camp sign up, based on family trips planned, you know? I'm just thinking of what Erica is saying in terms of writing down, like documenting it somewhere so that it becomes part of like the process of what we're doing. Because I don't think it's anyone on the board doesn't want to give an extra day for the sake of not giving the extra day. I think it's just, there's a lot of moving pieces here in terms of everything going on, and I want to make sure we cover all the bases so everyone in the community understands how we got to that date.
Yeah, and I think your point is a good one, because I was thinking the same thing, right? Kicking this back to the policy committee, right?
Yeah.
To kind of amend. Sorry, guys. Having to amend some of these policies and really look into those levers, right? And actually documenting them. I think that's important, because not for nothing, we did hear another holiday requested tonight,
Yeah.
and we kind of figured it was coming. But if what I just said just a few minutes ago, if I'm going to be consistent, right? When the next one comes, what do we say, right? We can't just say, oh, you get a holiday, you get a holiday, like we have to be consistent. We have to have our approach, to Erica, what you were saying earlier, right? And just for the public's education as well, is that those policy committee meetings, I'm throwing you guys under the bus, the policy committee meetings are open to the public, and that you can attend and know that this board and the policy committee in particular has been taking great care in consideration of Eid and any other holiday that we had in this district. And I just want that to be abundantly clear, that, again, to your point, Erica, right, that we do care and we are listening. It's very, very challenging to sit here and listen to the public comment, especially the kids, and not be able to respond. So we're trying to respond now. And the policy committee is also responding by putting this forth and requesting the additional calendar that we got. So,
a couple of thoughts. Just one is, some of those we do really have to think through. So, for example, the October 13th date, that's a teacher PD day, and so that's going to fall at some point in the. But in terms of the February date, again, we certainly could, just again with everything, and I agree with everything that's been said. But just when we think about, one of the questions that came up was attendance, and I think again, some families have gotten used to some of those dates being, so I just think we have to be creative, and if anything, what we would most need. Because there's a couple of things going on. One is approve a calendar this evening with Eid. We're still, for the next 2 school years, we're avoiding a lot of those issues that were brought up. But if, we continue to revise and think differently about our calendar, as you mentioned, I think we're going to need to think through some flexibilities with our regulations, and how long out we can schedule calendars, because we just have to, we're going to have to be responsive, that we can honor what's in our regulations and what's desired by our community, and also then respond as educators to say we've got to build a calendar around that works for everybody, including all of our families and who celebrate different holidays, because they also want consistency for their children and calendars that work, and their kids to feel, like there's some routine and schedule in the school day. So we just have to think through some of those pieces too.
So basically what I'm hearing just up to this point is support for Eid, but a lot of other considerations, and that, policy, kind of take a look at everything that was mentioned tonight. If we get to a point where you have to bring us, or when we get to a point where it's too late in June, for policy to look at when that date happens, and what other things could be considered. I don't think we're asking for anything to be removed today. I think it's just looking ahead in the future whether it's this board or any future board, how they're going to handle additional requests, or as somebody said, the perfect storm when literally everything happens on a school day and we have to close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be positioned, thank you, be positioned
Well,
to.
you look at the difference between the two calendars, right? It's like, if somebody's just looking at this and just saying, hey, what's the comparison? Oh, it's one day. It's not a huge, it's just not huge. And I don't mean to minimize just the holiday itself, right? It's just, it's just not a huge impact, right? But I just also want there to be abundantly clear that this is a slippery slope, right? When we're talking about equity and we're trying to be inclusive, and again, we heard that other request, but the precedent has already kind of been set. It's like, how can we award this group of people with a holiday to celebrate their religious or cultural holiday, right? And not another group of people. Yeah, do that.
Ann?
Yeah, I just want to say on that note, Eid is a major religious holiday like Good Friday, Diwali, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Someone coming in asking for Lunar New Year would be like me coming and saying, hey, we need St. Patrick's Day off because I'm Irish. I view that as a minor holiday, not a major religious holiday. And I think that should be the differential. And I think because Farmington has become so diverse in our population, we need to recognize that. And I think offering and giving Eid as a school holiday is appropriate based on our population now.
Yeah, I appreciate the point. I think it's challenging to draw that line, and I think that's probably where policy and consistency and just being fair to every walk of life in this town, right? And I think that's I'm not sure if I would be prepared or can be prepared to say one's worth more than another, right? I think that's a hard distinction to make, So I think I think it comes down to what we want to do as a board and how we want to frame it in our policy. Right now, we've got the policy the way it is, and whether it needs to be changed, I think that it's up to us to do it.
Any other comments? Beth?
I wanted to kind of tag on to what James was bringing forward, the issue of equity and how we want to recognize our diverse culture. And you just mentioned this too. That's where we're getting at. But I remember going back to the last process, so 2 years ago, those of us who were in discussions and had to work through this very challenging issue. The other piece of equity that we looked at, or just talked about at least, that we need to not forget, when we increase school closure days throughout the school year, and I know we're still doing 180 days, but there are days where we're closed that maybe we weren't in the past, or it's starting to add up. We have students that are on free and reduced lunch that may not get their meal that day. Students may be left home alone more often when we have parents choosing, when is that age? I mean, I went through that. When is that age you could leave students alone, your child alone? And if people are having childcare issues or they don't participate in Excel, students with learning challenges, they really need a certain number of days per week and that consistency to really keep with their progress and what they're getting at school. So I just think that's an important part of equity that is kind of the push and pull too, because we're thinking about, there's two sides to the equity argument.
Economic equity. Economic.
Yeah, it's more socioeconomic or other issues with special services and
Any other comments, discussion? All right, so do we have consensus that we want to move forward with the calendar that includes Eid as a day off?
Sorry, just to be clear, to consider version B, which
B.
includes E for to be brought back for a second read.
Yeah,
Correct.
which will amend the motion.
So I will need an amended motion.
Yeah.
I'd like to amend the motion that the Board of Education consider the alternate calendar.
We got it.
I'll have one. I mean, if she can,
Is it their specific word?
Amending the motion
yeah.
that we follow the alternate calendar for 26, 27, including Eid as a holiday.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion carries. All right, so next on the agenda, new business E, review of the 27-28 school calendar. First reading, can I have a motion?
I move to approve the 2027-2028 school year calendar as presented for a first reading.
Second?
So interestingly enough, in 27, 28, geez, their Eid does not fall on a weekday. So, you know, you're not, there's, doesn't matter. I guess it's in that particular case of like, you know, the calendar would be that way regardless. And so what I would say is that there's only one calendar to discuss. However, what would be brought back next time would be, for a second read, would be the 26-27 calendar with Eid, 27-28 calendar. I guess Eid would technically be listed, but wouldn't be a day off from school, as well as the revised regulations that would include Eid as a consideration in developing future calendars. So just wanted to clarify that.
But we can act on this motion, we don't need an amended motion.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
either way, you're approving the calendar. That's it. That's how. The only thing I would say, let's see, I just want to double check something. I don't think there's anything to change in that calendar, because on years in the past, like past practice would say when Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or Diwali did not fall on a school day, you wouldn't see them listed on the calendar as a day off from school. So once we decide Eid will become a regular part of, a regular school holiday when it falls on a Monday through Friday, then on years it does, it will be indicated on the calendar, and years it does not, just like we've done in the past with Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and Diwali.
Yeah.
Just a comment for me for 27, 28, like the floating holidays, like Good Friday is a floating holiday, right? It's always on Friday, but the week is different, right? In some weeks, it's part of our spring break, and some weeks it's not, right? So
Correct.
next year, I think one of the reasons why school is ending even earlier is, right, there's that spring break also includes Good Friday as well. So it's kind of two in one, if you will.
Correct, yep.
The opposite.
And we would always do that
I know, yeah.
unless it falls so early that it's,
There's no Rosh Hashanah, it's not before, yeah. Any other yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna comment the same comments I made for the first one with the half days and the, I don't know where we landed on the December 23rd half day situation, but same comments apply for that.
Yeah, I don't believe it's in the regulations. I did see this too, Angela. I
Yeah.
noticed that too.
So
It's not necessarily.
So I don't remember,
Why did we do it though this year? Do we know, like, why did it get, like, proposed to us?
I think it depended on where it fell.
I don't know, 'cause this year it was a Wednesday,
It was-
Thursday, like.
So it was a Tuesday, the 23rd was a Tuesday.
Well, I think, sorry.
No, go.
So I just, I don't know if I want to necessarily say, let's put it as a half day, especially when we're talking about like the chronic absenteeism and
Yeah.
grade. And maybe it is a full day and we just kind of only make those adjustments.
As recommended by the
as recommended by the
superintendent.
superintendent. Yeah. I
So
don't
was
know.
that just an anomaly this year? Have you guys done that before? Did we do it like last year? I can't remember.
May have done it before.
If I can add, I just remember watching from the audience, I remember Superintendent Greeter saying, this is something she could have done by herself, but because the board was all here, let's sort of vote on it. So I guess that's my follow-up question. This conversation is if the superintendent can sort of call a day an early dismissal versus a full, because it's still a day of school,
Right,
right? And
that's
it
the
counts.
distinction.
So I don't know if that's, we need to answer that, or if we can just get through regulation versus changing the policy to do that or not.
Yeah, because as the super, you have the ability to have a half day.
Sure.
Close school earlier. So.
Yep.
So maybe we just leave it as is and.
Megan, that's what I remember.
You're going to bring both of these
Yeah,
back
that's
for
a
a
good-
second read, so it gives me a little bit of time to think about it. And I mean, I'm sure everyone would like to have that day as a half day, but my only thought is, and hear me say this, but like whenever it's the last day, the day before is always the last day. And so, again, just something to be mindful of as we're thinking about the impact of partial days and partial weeks, and people who are going to leave on the 23rd for a trip, let's say, to go visit family or to travel, are going to leave on the 23rd, most likely, whether it's a half day or not. Again, any teachers or students who are home watching are probably like, I thought we liked that guy. So let me just think about that from an impact perspective.
Maybe we should see how often
It's only 2
we've done it.
hours.
Like, because I don't know. I don't know. Has it been every year? I can't
I
remember.
feel like 1 year, I feel like we've had it be a full day, and the only reason I remember this is because I thought, yes, I can wrap all the gifts without the kids being home, because I took the day off, I don't know, that sounds, yeah.
Sure.
I just remember.
Yeah.
All right.
That was
Yeah.
my only comment.
Yep.
Quick, back when I was in school, it was just a full day. So we just went through the full day, and right before Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just saying it's only 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, again,
I can't remember the reason why. So. All right, so. No, we have to vote now. Yep. We had a motion and a second, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay. I lost my agenda. That brings us to item 9, consideration of Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations report. So I need a motion.
I move to approve the November 2025 financial statement report as presented.
Second.
Okay. Dan?
For sake of time, we're good. We still continue to be on pace. Everything is moving along, kind of like the budget impact, budget update in there. Honestly, I'm not even sure there's really any, if anyone, I'm happy to take any questions, but I don't think there's really any major anomalies in there to even bring attention to.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion carries. So that brings us to, I keep losing my agenda. Yeah, I know it is, but I don't know what item number it is. All right. Item 10, report of the board chair. So I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. As we begin the new year and the new term, I just want to wish my fellow board members, our faculty, our staff, our students, and their families really a healthy, joyful, and successful year ahead. I just also want to just thank James and Angela for their kind words, and thank you to the whole board for electing me chair. I really look forward to continued collaboration as we do this important work together on behalf of our students in our community. I also want to extend a very warm welcome to Haley, Ann, Matt, and Matt. Also, welcome again to Jess. We're so glad to have you here as the leader of Farmington Public Schools and are really excited to see where we're going to go. I have committee, hopefully I have them all. Committee and liaison out. For everybody. Here, you can put some along. Basically, if you can prioritize, with the standing committees, prioritize 1 through 4, your interests, and then on the liaisons, I think there's 9, so prioritize 1 through 9. I'll also send it out electronically so that you can just get it back to me. I'd like to have them assigned by our next board meeting, which is January 26th at Noah Wallace. Just so you do know, Beth has been on the building committee, and she'll continue serving on the building committee until that's done. And Erica has been serving on Community Council for Equity and Inclusion, and there is a meeting this week, January 14th, so I had already approached her about whether or not she wants to continue, and she will continue on that committee. And let's see. I think other than that, I mean, we received an email from Dee about an FOIA workshop, FOIA workshop for public officials at Town Hall on January 22nd at 6 p.m. You can go in person, or there is also a virtual link. And Dee sent out an email about block dates that have to do with Board of Ed and Town Council budget meetings, when the public hearing is, and the annual town meeting. So just be mindful of those meetings. The Board of Ed budget is presented to the Town Council on, I believe it's March 11th. But with that, I hope future meetings will be a little bit shorter. I know past chairs are probably like, Andrea, you didn't make it before 10, but I think we had a really good meeting for a first meeting of this term, and especially because we have a lot of new board members. I'm encouraged by the questioning and the dialogue that we have tonight, and I think we're going to do a lot of good work going forward. So with that said, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're adjourned at 10:46.